Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the Library Beyond Ooh, I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. There is a moment just before a story settles into the mind where everything grows a little softer. The air feels a touch lighter, the shadows smooth their edges, and even the quiet seems to lean in, waiting. It is in this gentle, in-between place that the doorway first reveals itself, almost as if it has been patiently waiting for someone willing to notice. Not a door made of wood or stone, nor anything built by hands, but a faint shimmer, a ripple in the fabric of imagination. Like a page turning itself before the reader is ready. Tonight we drift toward that doorway together, stepping slowly into the hush between memories and dream. It exists just beyond Ooh, yet not in the way a distant mountain or far-off kingdom exists. Instead, it sits slightly to the side of everything ever told, quietly stitched into the boundary where stories pause to breathe. For most travelers, it remains unseen, hidden in the folds of forgotten legends and half-remembered bedtime tales. But for those who walk with a curiosity in their hearts and a softness in their steps, it glows like a lantern held aloft by an unseen hand. I first sensed it while exploring an old whispery trail of lore, the kind that curls around the edges of known history. It felt like brushing my fingertips against the spine of a book I didn't remember picking up or hearing the echo of a word I had never spoken. The closer I moved toward it, the more the world around me seemed to deepen, as though the colors of Ooh were blending with something older and vast, something watching from just beyond the veil. Imagine standing at the edge of a still pond at night, the moonlight shimmering across the surface. If you lowered your gaze, you might see not just the reflection of the sky, but a soft doorway shimmering beneath the water, waiting for someone patient enough to notice. That is how the door hidden between stories feels. Not bright, not loud, not demanding, just quietly there, like an invitation written in the language of imagination. When we step closer, the air has a faint scent of old parchment warmed by candlelight. Not musty, but comforting. Familiar, even if you have never set foot in a great library before. The atmosphere hums with a slow, steady rhythm, as though thousands of stories are breathing in unison somewhere far beyond the entrance. And the shimmer of the doorway grows clearer, showing edges that aren't made of lines, but of possibilities. Some say the door appears only when a story is about to be remembered. Others believe it forms at the exact moment when someone somewhere wonders about the past of Ooh, or imagines a future that has not yet been drawn. Tonight, though, it emerges simply because you and I are here, settling into this quiet space together, ready to drift deeper into the mysteries that lie just beyond the known world. The doorway doesn't swing or slide open. Instead, it unfurls gently, like a curtain made of light, parting to reveal the vast hush on the other side. There is no threshold to step over, no grand archway to pass through. You simply glide, as if thought itself is carrying you forward. And with each step, the world behind grows softer, fading into a serene hum, while the realm ahead blooms into view with patient clarity. The first sensation inside is the quiet, not emptiness, not silence, but the quiet of a place that has been listening for a very, very long time. It wraps around you like a soft cloak, warm and reassuring, inviting you to slow your breathing, loosen your shoulders, and drift with ease. The air tastes faintly of starlight and paper, and each breath feels like turning a page. Only then do the first shelves appear, rising slowly from the dim glow around us. They stretch farther than the eye can follow, curving gently into the distance like the ribs of some ancient cosmic creature. Each shelf is lined with volumes that shimmer faintly, their colors shifting from pale gold to deep twilight blue as you walk past them. They are alive in their own quiet way, humming softly as though they hold not just stories, but the emotions woven into them. These early shelves belong to Ooh, not the Ooh we see in the show, nor the one we imagine in our theories, but a softer, shifting version that contains every retelling ever whispered across time. Here Finn's childhood appears not as a fixed timeline, but as a tapestry of possibilities. In one book, his path is familiar, following the steps we know. In another, he wanders slightly differently, guided by a moment of kindness or doubt that never made it into the canon, but lingered in someone's imagination long enough to take form. And Jake's laughter echoes somewhere among these shelves, not as sound, but as a bright, gentle pulse in the air. Princess Bubblegum's endless dedication glows in soft pink hues from a row of carefully bound tomes. Marceline's centuries of wandering are preserved in volumes that feel lighter or heavier, depending on the chapter they represent. Nothing here is rigid. Stories breathe, shifting subtly as if reacting to the presence of whoever approaches them. This is only the beginning of the library beyond Ooh, and the doorway we step through is merely one of many. Yet it is the one that appears most often to those who seek stories with open hearts. For now, we move gently forward, deeper into the aisles where imagination gathers like drifting fog. The light within these aisles doesn't come from lanterns or crystals or any source you could point to. Instead, it feels as though the stories themselves are glowing, softly illuminating the air around them. The brightness is never harsh. It drifts like moonlight caught in slow-moving water, shimmering with each quiet step you take. And as we continue forward, the shelves begin to stretch higher, lifting into the dim canopy above, like the trunks of ancient trees in a forest that has existed since the first spark of imagination. With every few steps, you might notice a book gently shifting on its own, as though adjusting to find a more comfortable place. Sometimes a page rustles ever so slightly, stirred by a memory that has just crossed someone's mind in another world. These tiny motions create a peaceful murmur, a distant hush of countless stories rearranging themselves, forming new connections and remembering old ones. It is the sound of a library that is truly alive, and it moves with the same tranquil patience as a tide rolling in across a quiet shore. As we drift deeper, you might feel a strange warmth on your fingertips. It isn't heat exactly, but a soft, vibrational hum that tingles gently through your hands. This is what happens when you walk close to a story that remembers you. Some tales inside this library recognize the hearts of the people who have loved them. Moments you once felt deeply while watching Adventure Time. Little scenes of bravery or loneliness or quiet hope echo here, forming a gentle resonance that reaches out like a familiar voice in a dream. One shelf in particular stands out as we pass it. The wood, if you can even call it wood, looks smoother than the others, polished by centuries of whispered recollection. This shelf holds the earliest stories of Ooh, those strange and beautiful tales that float somewhere between history and fable. The volumes are thick and bound in earthy colors, deep greens, warm browns, and muted golds. When you draw near, faint impressions rise from their surfaces, silhouettes of forgotten kingdoms, faded outlines of the Mushroom War's earliest warnings, and phantom shapes of heroes whose names never reach the show. If you place your palm over one of these covers, you might feel a slow, rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat. These ancient stories are the foundation upon which Oo's entire timeline was built. They contain fragments of lore so old that even the archivists of this place speak of them in soft, reverent tones. And though the histories here may not match the exact details we see in the animated series, they hold a truth older and deeper, something shaped by countless tellings and retellings, by the collective dream of the world that imagined Ooh into being. The hallway turns slightly, guiding us as the shelves begin to grow narrower and the books thinner and more delicate. These contain stories that hover closer to the surface of memory, moments that flickered briefly in the background of episodes, hints that were never fully explored, side characters who drifted in and out of the narrative with barely a whisper. Here, even the smallest background detail has been given a home. Every glance, every unspoken line, every subtle shift in the world is recorded like a gentle echo preserved forever. You might see a book that holds the entire history of the tiny king worm dream sequence, another that contains the complete lives of the three wizards, seen only once in the far background of a marketplace. There is even a slim volume that seems to glow with a soft blue light, holding all of the what-if possibilities of a single moment when Finn hesitated before taking a step. One tiny change, yet bursting with enough potential to fill its own universe. As we walk, the floor beneath us shifts from the soft, velvety texture near the entrance to something smoother, like polished stone. It carries a faint reflection, just enough that you can see the outlines of books fluttering high above. This place is vast, so vast that no visitor has ever reached its deepest corner. The archivists speak of the end only in metaphors, suggesting that the library continues to grow each time someone, somewhere, tells a story about Ooh. In this way, the place expands slowly and endlessly, following the quiet rhythm of imagination rather than time. A gentle breeze passes through the corridor, though there is no source for it here. It carries with it the soft scent of ink and something sweet, like dried fruit or warm honey. This breeze often arrives when new stories form on distant shelves, signals that somewhere in the multiverse, another fragment of Ooh has been written, spoken, or dreamed. Perhaps someone on Earth has finished a fanfic, or a child has imagined a brand new character living in the Candy Kingdom. Or maybe someone, lying in bed just like you, has wondered what Finn and Jake might be doing at this very moment. All of these ideas drift here eventually. The doorway behind us now feels impossibly distant, as though it has folded itself back into the quiet between realities. Ahead, the shelves widen, opening to a soft, expansive glow. This next chamber is where the earliest echoes of the library are said to have awakened, where the first stories converged and built a home for themselves. And we are just beginning our journey into its heart. As we drift into this wider chamber, the ceiling lifts far above, curving into an arch that resembles the inside of a great whale's ribcage, vast, sheltering, and ancient. The glow here is dimmer, warmer, as though the chamber prefers candlelight despite having no candles at all. The shelves curve gently with the room, forming soft spirals that invite you inward, as if the entire place is beckoning you to wander without hurry, without expectation, without the need to ever fully understand everything you see. There is a feeling here, a quiet intuition, that you are walking across the threshold of something older than Ooh itself, something that was waiting long before the first drop of the Mushroom War's fallout fell upon the earth, long before the ice crown touched mortal hands, long before Marceline learned how to hold a guitar. This is the chamber where stories first began to gather, as though guided by some instinctual call to come home. The floor shifts again, becoming softer, almost like the moss-covered ground of an ancient forest. It cushions every step, encouraging you to slow down, to breathe a little deeper, to sink into the moment. The air feels warmer, too, with a gentle pressure that feels like the weight of a blanket laid carefully across your shoulders, comforting and grounding. As we move further inside, the faint sounds of rustling pages fade into something more melodic. Not quite music, not quite whispers, but a layered hum of voices telling their tales in harmony, each one soft enough to blend into the next. Off to the side, you might notice a cluster of bookshelves that curve around one another, forming a small alcove like a reading nook created by the stories themselves. In the center rests a single pedestal, carved from a material that looks like smooth stone but glows faintly from within. Resting on the pedestal is a book larger than the others, bound in a texture that resembles woven shadows. This book is known as the First Gathering, or at least that is the closest translation the archivists could provide. It contains the earliest recorded echoes of Oo's existence, traces of legends passed down through generations of storytellers, memories formed before memory itself had a language. If you move closer, you might notice that the book does not sit perfectly still. Its surface ripples subtly like a pond disturbed by a gentle breeze. The stories inside it are so old, so foundational, that they continue to rewrite themselves as new interpretations emerge across the world. When someone wonders whether Oo rose from the ashes of a forgotten civilization, or whether magical forces shaped it from the start, those questions ripple into this book like falling leaves touching water. The library keeps every version, every possibility, nestled together in peaceful coexistence. But the most mesmerizing feature of this chamber is not on the shelves or the pedestals. It is in the air itself. Here, tiny motes of light drift like dust caught in a sunbeam, moving slowly through the warm glow. These lights are fragments of unwritten stories, small sparks of curiosity that have yet to settle into words. Some wander aimlessly for centuries. Others coalesce quickly, forming into the beginnings of tales the moment someone in another world begins to imagine a new piece of Oo's past, present, or future. The archivists call them seeds of possibility, and they treat them with quiet reverence, careful not to breathe too close or disturb their gentle paths. As we walk deeper into the chamber, the shelves begin to show a new kind of book, slender volumes bound in smooth, pale material that feels like the petals of moonlit flowers. These books hold stories that were once lost, tales forgotten by their tellers or fragments of lore that nearly slipped from memory. The library recovers them slowly and lovingly, gathering whatever pieces remain. Some volumes hold only a single sentence, glowing faintly in the center of an otherwise blank page. Others consist of a few shaky paragraphs, recorded by dreamers who woke too soon, but remembered just enough for the story to remain alive. These forgotten tales are some of the most fragile in the library. When you run a hand over the spine of one, it may feel lighter than air, as though it might drift away if released from its shelf. And yet there is something deeply restful about them. They remind you that not every story needs to be complete to matter. Some simply exist as echoes of feelings, impressions of moments that touch someone deeply enough to be preserved here, even if the details dissolved long ago. We continue onward into a part of the chamber where the shelves tilt slightly inward, forming a long, tunnel-like path. The walls of this tunnel are draped in shimmering curtains, each woven from threads of light that sparkle softly as you pass. These curtains do not block the shelves behind them, but instead filter them, showing you glimpses of stories that are still forming. You might catch the outline of a young Finn imagining his future adventures, or a fleeting dream where Jake pictures himself as a star drifting through space. These visions flicker like the glow inside a firefly lantern, gentle, warm, and fleeting. The tunnel eventually opens into another space, smaller but filled with a serene glow. Here the shelves do not reach high above you. Instead, they form a ring around the room, each shelf lower and more intimate, as if the library wants you to sit, rest, and linger. Many travelers, be they archivists or rare wanderers, describe this place as the heart of the entrance chamber. It is not the true center of the library by any means, but it is the place where the spirit of the library first becomes clear. At the center sits a circular platform hovering a few inches above the ground. Resting on it is a single small book, no bigger than a journal. Its cover is soft gray, plain and quiet, yet it draws the eye effortlessly. This book is the welcoming record, the one that captures the arrival of every visitor who find their way inside. Not by name or by face, but by presence, by the gentle impression their curiosity leaves on the world of stories. Anyone who steps into this chamber becomes part of its living memory, marked not by who they are, but by the softness with which they wandered into the realm of imagination. And as we take a slow breath together in this space, you might feel the library acknowledging you as well, preparing to reveal even deeper wonders the further we wander into its endless, dreaming corridors. Beyond the central platform, the chamber begins to unfold even more expansively, as if the walls themselves are breathing outward, creating a gentle horizon of stories. The shelves grow taller again, yet this time they curve in subtle spirals, winding like the rings of a distant planet, each rotation holding a new layer of narrative. It feels impossible to tell where one shelf ends and another begins, or where the floor truly meets the endless ceiling above. Every glance reveals more books, more possibilities, more whispered echoes of lives lived, imagined, or only dreamed about. The stories here do not insist on attention. They do not call out or demand that you open them. Instead, they exude a soft warmth, a kind of quiet invitation, and if you pause long enough, your mind begins to feel their presence, even without touching a single volume. A story of Finn's first heroic act might float across your vision, unformed, like morning fog brushing a forest canopy. A tale of Marceline's centuries of wandering drifts past, carrying a faint melody only your memory could hum. The library does not rush you. It allows the stories to drift into consciousness at their own pace, like leaves settling slowly onto still water. Somewhere along one of these endless aisles, you might notice a cluster of books that vibrate ever so subtly, as if responding to the quiet curiosity of your heart. These are stories not yet fully realized, tales that exist in fragments, glimpses, or shimmering shadows. Touching them is like dipping your fingers into a pool of starlight. A faint pulse of possibility travels up your arm, soft as a sigh. The archivists speak of these books as gestures of imagination, moments that have formed but have not yet been cemented by retelling. They do not worry that such stories are incomplete. In the library, incompleteness is not a flaw. It is a gentle, breathing reminder that every story is alive, even in its quietest moments. As we continue down the aisle, the shimmer of the doorway behind us grows fainter, almost dissolving into memory. It is comforting to know that the path back is never lost, yet it encourages you to move forward, to explore, to linger among these living pages. Here the library begins to reveal its deeper magic. Books that shift slightly as you pass, pages that flicker with half-formed words, illustrations that change hue depending on your gaze. Each volume reacts to attention, curiosity, and quiet reflection, as though the act of noticing itself nourishes the stories and allows them to bloom more fully. There is a particularly serene corner where the shelves bend into a soft spiral, enclosing a tiny nook filled with books that seem almost to float, suspended midair. These are tales of quiet moments, the small, unnoticed acts of kindness in ooh, the subtle decisions that altered the course of someone's journey, the fleeting thoughts of characters at dawn or dusk. They carry no drama, no spectacle, only the gentle pulse of life continuing, the quiet, beating heart of the world as it turns. Sitting here feels like listening to a soft wind whispering through an endless forest, and for a moment, you may sense ooh itself breathing alongside you. The library is not static. It is a place of perpetual motion, not in haste, but in the gentle, infinite rhythm of storytelling. A story of Finn and Jake exploring a hidden cave may float past on one shelf, while a memory of Princess Bubblegum, tending to her experiments, drifts softly on another. Even fan imaginings, the quiet what-ifs and whispers of distant dreamers, find their way here, woven seamlessly into the greater fabric of the library. Nothing is too small, too strange, or too ephemeral to be preserved. In this way, the library is not only a home for the known, it is a cradle for possibility, a haven for imagination that has yet to take form. A faint scent of ink and honey drifts through the spiraling aisles. It is a smell that somehow evokes nostalgia and curiosity at once, a perfume of memory and potential intertwined. Tiny motes of light drift lazily through the air, each representing a single story waiting for attention, a single dream longing to be remembered. Watching them float, one can almost imagine the pulse of all ooh condensed into these small sparks, each one a fragment of adventure, laughter, sorrow, or hope. The library listens to them all patiently, quietly, never forgetting a single note, never rushing the unfolding of a tale. The chamber widens again, revealing an even more astonishing sight. A row of shelves that seem to extend infinitely into the horizon. These shelves are for the stories that exist only in whispers, glimpses of ooh imagined by people who never wrote them down, fragments that hover in thought and memory. Here, a fan theory may shimmer with a soft blue glow alongside a half-written comic whose panels shift as if animated by a gentle breeze. The library does not distinguish between canon or conjecture, dream or reality. Every story, no matter its origin, is treated with the same quiet reverence, as if it carries equal weight in the slow, careful expansion of this cosmic collection. We may notice that as we move along these infinite shelves, our own memories begin to interact with the books. A faint recollection of a favorite episode, a character's line that once made the heart ache, even the images conjured in a daydream. All of these are acknowledged, incorporated into the library's living memory. It is as though the very act of remembering folds into the library, making it grow, stretch, and deepen. There is a calm sense of reciprocity here. The library preserves the stories of ooh, and in return, it preserves the hearts of those who remember them, weaving both into its quiet, infinite rhythm. And so as we reach the far edge of this first chamber, the first segment of our journey through the library beyond ooh comes to its soft, lingering pause. We have wandered among the gentle shimmer of the doorway, traced the early shelves where ooh's earliest stories breathe, felt the warmth of possibilities forming, and listened to the quiet pulse of imagination itself. The library remains endless, patient and luminous, awaiting the next step, the next story, the next visitor willing to drift softly through its aisles. We pause here, sleepyheads, letting the quiet settle around us like a blanket, before we drift onward into the deeper corridors of the library where the archivists And the stories of Ooh themselves are waiting to greet us, whispering tales yet untold, and inviting us to continue exploring, gently step by step. Now that we have lingered among the shimmering shelves and breathed in the quiet pulse of stories, it is time to meet those who care for the library in its patient, eternal way. These beings are not like anyone you have seen in Ooh, nor are they characters in the stories themselves. They are the archivists, the gentle keepers who move among the aisles with a soft, deliberate grace, attending to the millions upon millions of tales that converge here. They do not wear robes or carry lanterns, and they do not speak in words that we can easily understand. Instead, they are formed of something more subtle. Strands of light and shadow woven together, threads of memory that coil slowly through the air. Sometimes they appear almost humanoid, with long, fluid arms and faces that shift as if reflecting the emotions of the stories they hold. Other times they take shapes more abstract, glimmering silhouettes that ripple like reflections in a quiet pond, or orbs of soft luminescence that drift above a shelf as they consider which tale to nurture next. The archivists move in perfect silence. Their presence is felt rather than heard, like a breeze brushing against the edge of thought. They tend to the library not with urgency, but with patience, smoothing pages with light fingertips, adjusting the position of a book so that its story may be easier to access. When a volume has been neglected for too long, they breathe gently upon it, and the story within awakens softly, memories fluttering back like long-lost birds returning to their nests. Every action is deliberate, measured, and soothing, creating a rhythm that calms both the library and anyone wandering its aisles. One of the most remarkable qualities of these archivists is the way they perceive stories. They do not judge the truth of a tale, nor insist on separating canon from conjecture. They read the heartbeat of each story, sensing the emotions that shaped it, and the feelings it inspires. A story that was whispered in a child's bedroom decades ago holds as much weight as a carefully scripted episode from the show. Even dreams, fan theories, and imagined adventures find their place on the shelves, and the archivists treat them all with the same delicate reverence. As we follow one of these beings through the aisles, we notice subtle gestures that feel almost ritualistic. They lift a book gently from its shelf, letting it hover in the air. Pages turn themselves as the archivist observes, revealing stories that have been read many times and those that have not yet been discovered. A soft glow emanates from their hands, illuminating words that may have faded over centuries. In this light, the narrative becomes visible not only to the eye but to the heart, allowing anyone present to feel the story's essence without needing to understand every word. Occasionally, the archivist paused to hum or vibrate softly. It is not a tune in any conventional sense, but a resonance that travels through the library, a gentle echo that encourages stories to settle into place. These vibrations help maintain the delicate balance of the library, allowing new tales to integrate seamlessly with ancient ones. In some ways, the archivists are like conductors of an invisible symphony, each story a note that contributes to the harmonious pulse of the whole. The archivist's presence is most apparent when a new story begins to form, whether it arises from a dreamer imagining Ooh far away, or from someone pondering a small what-if scenario in a quiet room. A new tale glows faintly at first, like a single star in a night sky, and the archivist approaches it with a careful attentiveness. They trace its edges with fingers of light, ensuring that it is gently cradled and guided to the proper shelf. Sometimes they lean in as if listening closely, as though the story has a voice of its own, and perhaps it does, speaking in a language of echoes, memories, and emotion. Even the most fleeting thoughts, those fragments of imagination that might otherwise fade, find a place under the archivist's care. A whispered idea about Finn exploring a hidden forest, a fleeting picture of Marceline writing a song in the moonlight, or a sudden thought about a candy creature living in a forgotten corner of Ooh, all are absorbed into the gentle, patient rhythm of the library. The archivists understand that stories are not just sequences of events, but living reflections of the hearts that imagine them. In their presence, the library itself seems to respond. Books lean slightly forward, pages flutter, and soft lights trace the contours of shelves as if to greet the archivist's touch. Even the air carries a quiet hum, resonating with the subtle power of memory and imagination intertwined. You might notice that your own thoughts feel slower, more deliberate, as if the archivist's gentle rhythm has seeped into the very way you breathe. It is impossible to feel rushed here. Time itself seems to bend softly, accommodating the measured pace of the library's caretakers. Some of these archivists specialize in certain types of stories. One may hover over the oldest chronicles of Ooh, books that hold the earliest echoes of the Mushroom War and the first wanderings of heroes. Another may drift among volumes that contain dreams and fan imaginings, ensuring that even the smallest spark of a story finds a home. Others seem to move with no clear pattern at all, wandering freely through the infinite aisles, smoothing narratives, aligning possibilities, and sometimes quietly listening to the heartbeat of the library itself. There is a comfort in watching them work. Their motions are fluid, never hurried, and their care for the stories is palpable. Even a single moment of attention seems to make a tale glow a little brighter, a little more alive. Watching an archivist in this way is like witnessing someone tending a garden in which every plant is a memory, every leaf a whisper of imagination, every flower a fully formed universe. And yet there is no need to rush forward, no pressure to interact. Simply observing their gentle diligence invites a quiet peace to settle over the mind and heart. The archivists are also attentive to the ways stories connect. They often pause to trace invisible threads between volumes, revealing relationships that may have been overlooked. A book about a forgotten Candy Kingdom citizen might be linked to a seemingly unrelated dream about Finn, their stories entwined by shared emotion, subtle parallels, or the echo of a single, fleeting idea. The archivists nurture these connections, ensuring that every tale, no matter how small, contributes to the quiet, living tapestry of the library. In some chambers, they gather in soft clusters, almost as if conversing in an imperceptible language of light and vibration. Perhaps they are sharing discoveries, or perhaps they are simply harmonizing with the pulse of the library. Their gatherings create ripples through the surrounding shelves, subtle waves that remind even the quietest stories of their place in the larger whole. The archivists do not demand attention, yet their work leaves an indelible impression. Even those who wander through these halls without touching a single volume feel a gentle reassurance, as if the library itself recognizes their presence and embraces them. The serenity of the archivists is not a stillness born of absence, but a stillness of understanding. They embody the quiet patience that the library requires, the knowledge that stories unfold on their own timetable, that imagination cannot be hurried, and that every thought, every fragment of memory, deserves to be gently cradled. In this way, the library is alive not merely because of the stories it holds, but because of the care lavished upon them by these ethereal, watchful beings who move like slow light through its endless corridors. As we drift alongside them, following their soft movements from aisle to aisle, we begin to sense a subtle truth. The archivists are not only caretakers of stories, they are the living heartbeat of the library itself. Without their patient attention, the vast network of narratives might scatter into nothingness. With them, every story, from the grandest legend to the tiniest whispered dream, finds its place, preserved in the warm, gentle embrace of the library beyond Ooh. Even here, in the presence of beings so extraordinary, there is no feeling of awe or fear. Instead, a quiet invitation fills the air, to breathe slowly, to wander softly, to watch and to feel, and to remember that imagination is a gentle, living force that continues to grow with each quiet heartbeat, each thoughtful step, each attentive gaze. And as we move further along this path, following the archivists, deeper into the labyrinth of stories, the library begins to open itself in ways even more wondrous, more intimate, and more infinite than anything we have yet seen. The shelves bend, the aisles stretch, and the gentle hum of living tales grows stronger, guiding us forward into spaces where every possibility has its place, and every imagination, no matter how quiet, is welcomed, nurtured, and preserved. As we drift further alongside the archivists, the library begins to reveal subtler, quieter layers of its being. It is here, in the gentle folds between the aisles, that the presence of the caretakers feels most profound. They do not simply tend to the stories, they inhabit the space between them, their forms almost melting into the soft glow that radiates from the shelves. Sometimes a figure appears only as a faint shimmer against the curve of a shelf, a brush of light that follows the trajectory of a turning page. Other times they stretch tall and slender, their outlines reflecting the hue of the volumes nearest to them, bending like watercolor in a morning mist. Each movement they make seems to orchestrate the library itself. A finger traced along the edge of a book causes the pages within to flutter ever so lightly, as though the story is breathing in response. A tilt of the head aligns several volumes, connecting narratives across time and space, revealing echoes that were never obvious in the linear march of a tale. One might find that a story from Finn's earliest adventures is softly linked to a dream someone had years later, the archivist's touch bridging the invisible thread that joins them. It is a reminder that the library does not recognize boundaries in the way we think of them. Past, present, canon, or dream, all are simply expressions of the same quiet pulse of imagination. The archivist's patience extends even to those stories that have faltered or faded. You may notice one leaning over a slim volume, its edges tattered, the ink on its pages blurred with the passage of time. A gentle hum, almost imperceptible, resonates from the archivist's form. Pages begin to lift slightly, catching light, as if brushing away the dust of neglect. Lines that had begun to fade regain their clarity. Scenes once forgotten take on a soft glow once more. And as the story strengthens, so too does the surrounding air, carrying a faint warmth that settles into the chest like a slow, satisfying sigh. They are not limited to the preservation of the known either. The archivists are attuned to the possibilities that ripple across the universe of Ooh. Perhaps a new tale emerges in a quiet corner of someone's imagination far away, a fleeting daydream of a Candy Kingdom adventure, or a whispered what if about the Ice King's past. Even these fragile sparks of narrative energy are carefully collected. The archivist approaches, hovering over the story with a soft radiance, and the tale folds gently into the shelves, integrating seamlessly with the library's living archive. It is not ownership that they seek, nor control, but harmony, ensuring that every story, whether born in canon or in dream, has a home and a chance to breathe. There is a particularly serene ritual the archivists perform in certain quiet chambers. When a story reaches the library for the first time, they gather in soft clusters, forming arcs of light around the new volume. Fingers of luminescence trace the pages, and a gentle vibration fills the air, encouraging the narrative to settle. The vibrations are subtle enough to soothe the mind, like a lullaby sung in a language you half remember. It is in these moments that the library feels most alive, a place where creation and preservation converge, and the infinite potential of ooh is palpable in every trembling page. Even as we move through these aisles, we notice that the archivists do not rush. They glide slowly, deliberately, their attention never divided. A single archivist may spend what seems like hours with just one book, reading its echoes, aligning its threads, or gently coaxing a hidden detail into clarity. There's no sense of urgency, no expectation to move forward, only the unhurried rhythm of attention given fully, patiently, lovingly. And this quiet devotion extends a subtle invitation to us, the wandering observers, to slow our own minds, to sink into the warmth and calm that pervades the library. Sometimes the archivists pause to consider stories that are interconnected in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. A laugh from a distant adventure might align with a whispered sadness from another, and the archivist hovers between the volumes, drawing soft lines of light that reveal the resonance between them. These lines do not demand notice. They are a gentle affirmation of the unity of experience, a reminder that every joy, sorrow, or fleeting curiosity in O, no matter how small, finds its echo somewhere else. You may notice that the archivists themselves are affected by the stories they touch. A tale of triumph causes a soft glow to spread through their form, while a story of loss tints their light with a quiet shadow. They carry these echoes as part of themselves, not burdened, but honored, holding the spectrum of emotion that flows through the library. Watching them is like witnessing a calm dance of empathy and care, each movement measured, deliberate, and full of quiet grace. In their presence, the library transforms from a mere collection of stories into something living, breathing, and almost aware. The archivists are both guides and companions, the gentle pulse that keeps the vast expanse of ooze narratives in quiet harmony. And as we follow them further into the deeper aisles, we begin to sense that the library has much more to reveal, that these caretakers are only the first step in understanding the true depth, the gentle power, and the endless wonder of the library beyond ooh. As we move deeper into the library alongside the archivists, their presence feels increasingly intertwined with the very air, as though the space itself bends and breathes with their quiet attention. The shelves begin to rise higher once again, their surfaces curving gently inwards like the delicate swell of a wave frozen mid-motion. Here the archivist's care becomes almost ritualistic, a slow choreography performed with unhurried devotion, each gesture an offering to the stories themselves. They handle volumes with a reverence that seems to acknowledge not only the content, but the hearts of those who imagined them, whether creators, dreamers, or casual observers who once wondered about ooh in the quiet hours of the night. We follow one archivist as it glides to a particularly tall shelf, its form a faint fluid shimmer of silver and soft violet light. The book it selects is thin and fragile, the pages curling slightly at the edges, but the archivist does not hesitate. Its fingers of light trace along the spine, releasing a gentle pulse into the story, coaxing the faint echoes of the narrative to awaken. Lines of ink lift gently from the page, forming miniature, luminous echoes that hover for a brief moment before settling back into their pages. Each pulse seems to carry a sigh of recognition, as though the story is breathing after a long sleep. Some of the archivists pause in silent contemplation, their forms leaning in close to the volumes as if listening. Perhaps they hear the faint echoes of a forgotten line of dialogue from an old episode, or the unspoken emotions of a character captured in a fleeting glance. Perhaps they sense the lingering hope of someone far away, imagining a new adventure in the Candy Kingdom. They do not need to speak to communicate. Their intent flows quietly into the library, soft and deliberate, touching each story with care, smoothing the frayed edges of forgotten plots, aligning characters with the resonance of their true essence. The archivists are not bound by a linear understanding of time. A story that existed centuries ago may find its echo alongside one born in a dream last night. The library itself bends to accommodate these threads, each tale folding gently into another, creating a living tapestry that is as infinite as the imagination that sustains it. We may notice that when an archivist lingers between two volumes, faint lines of iridescent light begin to trace invisible paths from one story to the other. These connections reveal subtle harmonies, moments where the emotions or themes of one narrative echo in another, like soft whispers carried across space and time. Some shelves here hold volumes that pulse faintly with multiple colors, a subtle spectrum that shifts depending on the archivist's touch. These are the stories of possibilities, tales that never fully happen, dreams that were imagined and then altered, small variations of events that ripple through in ways unseen. The archivist hovers nearby, fingers brushing lightly across the spines, ensuring that each version retains its unique resonance, preserving not just the events, but the emotional truth hidden within them. Even the tiniest detail, a glance, a whisper, a hesitation, receives careful attention, treated as though it were the most crucial moment in O's history. In some alcoves, clusters of archivists gather, their forms weaving around one another in slow arcs of light, almost like constellations in a night sky. They hum softly, a gentle vibration that flows through the shelves, encouraging stories to bloom fully into their pages. Their vibrations are a form of communication, a lullaby to the library itself. The tales respond, fluttering in acknowledgement, shimmering faintly, and sometimes rearranging themselves slightly to align with one another in a more harmonious pattern. It is a quiet symphony, a slow, meditative rhythm that invites anyone present to slow their thoughts, to drift gently alongside it, and to feel the pulse of imagination as something alive, breathing, and patient. We may catch glimpses of archivists attending to stories of loss or quiet melancholy, their forms absorbing the weight of the narrative like a soft sponge. And yet there is no heaviness here. The library does not allow sorrow to linger destructively. Instead, it transforms it into a gentle resonance, a lesson wrapped in warmth, a reminder that even sadness can be preserved with care and beauty. Watching them perform this subtle, unseen work is a calming experience, a gentle reassurance that every story, no matter how small or dark, has a place and a purpose within the infinite library. At times, an archivist moves through the aisles and pauses before a book that seems to glimmer faintly, almost as though it is alive in anticipation of being noticed. They hover over it, their light brushing the pages, and the story unfolds quietly before our eyes, not fully formed, but enough to touch the imagination. Perhaps it is a story of Finn wandering alone in a forest, or Marceline tracing a melody in the moonlight, or Princess Bubblegum carefully adjusting a delicate experiment. Each tale is delicate and intimate, a quiet reflection of itself, captured not in spectacle, but in nuance, emotion, and possibility. The archivists do not limit themselves to stories already written. They are attuned to whispers of future imaginings, the gentle pulse of thoughts that have yet to solidify into narrative. A child lying awake somewhere, imagining a new adventure in the Candy Kingdom, sends a faint glow into the library, and an archivist will approach, guiding the story into existence even before it has been fully articulated. It is a gentle collaboration across space and thought, a recognition that the library thrives not just on what has been told, but on what is being imagined, on the quiet curiosity of dreamers across the world. And so, as we drift further, watching the archivists work, we begin to sense the full depth of their purpose. They are not mere caretakers or librarians. They are guardians of potential, keepers of resonance, tenderly nurturing every story that touches the vast expanse of ooh. They remind us that imagination is not finite, that every whispered thought, every dream of adventure, every imagined corner of the world has a home in this infinite library. And as we follow their soft, deliberate movements through the aisles, we realize that we are participating in something greater than ourselves, a quiet, breathing continuum of stories preserved and cherished by beings whose very existence is the embodiment of patience, empathy, and gentle care. The deeper we wander alongside the archivists, the more their quiet presence feels like the pulse of the library itself. Every shelf, every volume, every drifting mote of light seems to respond to them, bending subtly toward their attention. It is as if the very air around them is infused with a slow, gentle hum of recognition, a vibration that reassures the stories and the visitors alike that everything has its place. The archivists are conduits between imagination and memory, between the dream of ooh and the reality of its countless retellings, and their rhythm guides the entire library, slow and deliberate, like the tide caressing a distant shore. Sometimes we come upon a space where the archivists move in a quiet circle, hovering above a cluster of volumes that glow faintly with newness. These are fresh stories, perhaps born from someone's daydream last night, perhaps imagined in a quiet moment by a distant artist sketching the Candy Kingdom or the Ice King's lonely palace. The archivist's gestures here are subtle, almost imperceptible. Fingers of light trace the edges of pages, ensuring that the story's essence is fully captured. Lines that are faint or incomplete are coaxed into clarity, while moments of possibility are gently cradled to preserve their delicate potential. It is a form of care so patient and tender that it seems impossible to feel anything but calm while observing it. Some archivists focus on the most delicate stories, the ones that may never have fully existed outside someone's fleeting thought. A fan theory imagined quietly, a half-finished comic, a fleeting what-if whispered to the night. These fragile sparks of imagination receive equal attention, as if the act of nurturing them is as important as tending to the oldest and most canonical volumes. The library holds no hierarchy. Every story, no matter how small or uncertain, contributes to the overall heartbeat. And in this way, the archivists teach us something profound, that the value of a story lies not in its recognition or perfection, but in the simple act of imagining it and allowing it to exist, even softly, within the infinite tapestry of ooh. As we continue to drift, we notice that the archivists occasionally pause before a particularly ancient volume, one whose pages shimmer faintly with the echoes of countless memories. These are the stories of beginnings, the first flickers of life in ooh, the faintest whispers of adventures before they became legend. An archivist leans in close, its form rippling with light and shadow, and we sense that it is listening deeply. Perhaps it hears the voices of those who first dreamt of ooh, the creators whose imaginations seeded the world, or the echoes of long-forgotten storytellers whose names were never recorded. Each breath of attention nourishes these fragile threads, allowing the earliest stories to retain their clarity and life in a place where time does not press upon them. The archivists do not simply preserve, they harmonize. As they move through the aisles, their gestures trace invisible paths, aligning stories across centuries, realities, and dreams. A moment from Finn's first heroic adventure may resonate with a dream someone had decades later. A subtle feeling of melancholy in one tale may echo in a joyous discovery elsewhere. The archivists recognize these connections intuitively, guiding each story to its proper place in the lattice of narrative resonance. Watching them is like witnessing a calm river slowly reshaping the contours of a landscape, each movement deliberate, quiet, and profound. Even the light in the library seems to follow their lead. Motes of luminescence drift in soft arcs around their forms, settling onto volumes as if to illuminate them with the perfect amount of glow. The illumination is never harsh or commanding. It is gentle, like dawn brushing across a sleeping forest, allowing the stories to reveal themselves naturally, at their own pace. It is impossible to feel rushed here. The archivist's deliberate pace slows the mind, aligning attention with the rhythm of the library itself, encouraging visitors to move softly, think gently, and absorb the quiet magic of this endless archive. At times, the archivists gather in clusters, forming spirals of light around volumes that hold particularly complex or significant tales. Their collective hum resonates through the aisles, a sound that is more felt than heard, a vibration that settles deep within the chest like a comforting heartbeat. Stories respond to this attention, pages fluttering slightly, illustrations shimmering, and faint echoes of emotion rising from the ink. In this way, even the most intricate narratives, the ones that might otherwise be overlooked, receive the careful, patient consideration they deserve. We may notice that some archivists seem attuned to entire regions of the library, moving almost as guardians, their attention sweeping across shelves to ensure that every tale remains in balance. Others drift freely, following the subtle rhythms of imagination, tending to stories wherever they appear, drawn by curiosity, resonance, or the quiet pulse of a narrative that has been neglected. There is no hierarchy, no competition, only a collective devotion to the living essence of Oo's endless tapestry of stories. And as we follow them, drifting quietly through this gentle labyrinth, we begin to sense the profound lesson of the archivists. They remind us that stories are not merely records of events or adventures. They are living expressions of emotion, imagination, and connection. They endure because someone cared for them, because someone noticed them, because someone, even quietly and without expectation, allowed them to exist. The library, with its infinite aisles and shimmering shelves, is sustained not only by its volumes, but by the patient, loving attention of those who nurture it. Here in the soft glow of the archivist, we understand that every story, every fleeting thought, every whispered idea, every imagined adventure has a home. Every tale is valued, preserved, and integrated into a quiet, harmonious continuum. And as we drift among them, following their gentle, deliberate motions, we are enveloped in a calm that feels both eternal and intimate, a reassurance that the imagination is safe here, and that the library beyond Oo will always hold space for those who dream, remember, and wonder. The archivists guide us forward, deeper still, their luminescent forms winding through aisles that twist and curve like gentle rivers. We follow in soft silence, aware now that the true heart of the library is not its shelves, nor even its stories, but the quiet, careful devotion of these ethereal caretakers who embody patience, empathy, and the living pulse of imagination itself. And with that, sleepyheads, we drift further into the library, leaving behind the first chambers of discovery and entering the next realm, where the stories themselves begin to speak more freely and where the archivist's whispers guide us towards secrets yet untold. Now that we have walked among the archivists and felt the gentle pulse of their care, it is time to drift toward another, slightly more defined part of the library beyond Ooh. Here lies the canon shelves, a vast, serene expanse that seems to shimmer with a clarity all its own. This is where the official stories of Ooh reside, the tales recorded in episodes, in early concept art, in official comics, and in the hearts of the show's creators. Yet even here, within the shelves that contain what is widely recognized as true, the library maintains its gentle, flowing rhythm. Nothing is rigid, nothing is forced. Every story breathes in its own quiet, measured way. The shelves stretch in long, soft arcs, rising high and curving gently as if echoing the undulating hills of distant Ooh landscapes. The spines of the books glow with soft, muted colors, blues of calm oceans, golds of quiet sunlight, and silvers that shimmer like starlight captured in ink. Each volume is perfectly preserved, yet there is no sense of sterility here. The canon shelves feel alive, imbued with the sense that the events recorded in these stories are both fixed and yet fluid, echoing in every corner of the library, influencing and being influenced by countless other tales, both imagined and remembered. The path that leads through the canon shelves is lined with narrow streams of liquid light, softly rippling across the floor. These are the waters of what actually was, and they carry the weight of truth tempered by memory and perspective. Their surface glimmers gently, reflecting the shelves above, yet it is not a mirror. It is a living surface, carrying within it the subtle undulations of every event in Ooh that was officially told, every action, every decision, every whispered line that shaped the course of the world. The waters move slowly, deliberately, following no rush, their rhythm like the heartbeat of history itself. You may notice that as we step closer, the waters react softly to our presence. Ripples fan outward in gentle, concentric circles, as if acknowledging the observer. Each ripple contains a faint memory of Ooh's canon moments. Finn standing in the aftermath of a challenge, Jake stretching through the sky in quiet joy, Princess Bubblegum's careful experiments, the Ice King's lonely lamentation. Each reflection is subtle, as though the library allows the stories to show themselves only when the heart is ready to notice them. The archivists tend the canon shelves with the same care they give to the rest of the library, but with a particular attentiveness. Here they ensure that the essential truths of Ooh are preserved, aligned, and harmonized. A flick of light along a spine might reveal an unseen connection between two episodes, a subtle narrative thread that even dedicated viewers might have overlooked. The archivists trace these threads with infinite patience, smoothing them so that each story fits seamlessly within the grand tapestry, yet still allowing room for interpretation, for reflection, and for gentle wonder. Sometimes a visitor might notice that a book on the canon shelves seems to glow slightly brighter than its neighbors. These are the stories that carry particular resonance, the moments in Ooh's history that have touched many hearts. The archivists hover nearby, ensuring the glow does not overwhelm the surrounding volumes, balancing the luminescence like a gardener tending fragile blossoms. It is here, among the brightest of these canonical tales, that the library seems to breathe most deeply, the waters of what actually was, shimmering in response, rippling softly as if acknowledging the significance of the stories held above them. The waters themselves are more than just reflection. They are a conduit of comprehension, a slow-flowing medium through which the truths of Ooh ripple outward, connecting past, present, and potential future. If you lean close, you might notice faint images drifting just beneath the surface, A flash of Finn's first encounter with a villain, a fragment of BMO's quiet observation, a moment when Marceline's shadow stretches across a quiet, moonlit landscape. These images are not intrusive. They do not demand attention. Instead, they invite contemplation, allowing the observer to feel the stories rather than merely read them. The path along the waters of what actually was leads us past alcoves that house the intersecting points of canon and possibility. Here, the library reveals how stories, even when officially recorded, carry within them subtle potentials that could have unfolded differently. A decision made by a character, a line spoken differently, or even a pause in the narrative creates soft ripples across the water. These ripples are not corrections. They are quiet acknowledgments of how reality and imagination intermingle. The archivists hover nearby, occasionally dipping a finger into the currents, encouraging the ripples to harmonize rather than collide, maintaining the gentle equilibrium of narrative truth. We might come across a shelf that contains volumes of variant episodes, scenes that were drafted but never fully produced, early sketches that differ from what was eventually animated, lines of dialogue replaced before recording. The archivists treat these volumes with the same care as finished stories, recognizing that each fragment contributes to the heartbeat of the library. In a quiet way, these variant stories are reminders that canon is not a rigid structure, but a living dialogue, shaped by intention, creativity, and the subtle influence of countless minds dreaming of ooh across time. Between these canonical volumes and the reflective waters, one begins to sense the library's deep philosophy. The truth in storytelling is never static, but a gentle current flowing through countless retellings, each echo touching the next. The archivists, moving silently among the shelves, understand this instinctively. They tend to each volume not with the pressure of judgment, but with the patience of reverence. Every moment of O recorded here is treated as both historical and alive, a pulse in the ongoing resonance of the library. Along the edges of the canon shelves, there are volumes that carry what the archivists call interwoven moments. These books document events that, while canon contains subtleties or ambiguities that allowed for different interpretations or reactions. A fleeting glance between two characters, a moment left unspoken, or a detail hinted at but never confirmed. All are captured here, each page glimmering softly, waiting for someone to notice the delicate threads of possibility that extend from the official narrative. And so, sleepyheads, as we continue our gentle drift along the canon shelves and peer into the reflective currents of the waters of what actually was, we begin to understand that this section of the library is both sanctuary and mirror. It is a place where the truths of ooh are preserved, illuminated, and allowed to breathe, while also acknowledging the infinite possibilities that surround them. The canon is not a wall, but a stream, a slow-moving river in which every memory, every echo, and every ripple of imagination can float gently, safely, and eternally. Here in this serene expanse, we pause to rest for a moment, letting the soft glow of the canonical volumes and the gentle shimmer of the waters seep into our senses. The archivists drift past silently, their motions weaving harmony into the shelves and the currents alike, a lullaby of light and memory that reminds us that even the most official of stories can carry the quiet, infinite beauty of imagination. The journey along the canon shelves is far from over. Beyond these waters, deeper chambers await, where the boundaries between canon, dream, and possibility begin to dissolve entirely, and where the library's true heart opens to embrace the infinite breadth of ooh in all its forms. As we drift further along the edge of the waters of what actually was, the atmosphere grows even quieter. as though the library itself is leaning in to allow the canon to settle gently into its proper place. The surface of the water shimmers softly, reflecting the shelves above in a ripple of silver and blue, carrying the faint echo of every adventure, every whispered line, every careful choice made by the characters in Ooh. Leaning close, one can almost see the subtle interplay between cause and effect. A single action in one story sending soft vibrations through the water that reach another tale, another moment, another possibility. The archivists move carefully along these edges, their forms glowing faintly, attuned to the currents of truth that flow through the waters. A finger dips lightly into the surface, and the ripples expand slowly, interacting with other subtle currents from distant stories. They do not rush, and neither does the water. The library seems to teach a quiet lesson here. The truth, like imagination, moves at its own pace, guided by attention and care rather than force or haste. Each ripple, each reflection, carries weight, yet it is a gentle weight, like a soft echo in a vast chamber, reminding us that even the smallest act or decision in Ooh has its resonance. There are places along the waters where the ripples collect, forming gentle pools that glow with the concentrated memory of a single moment. Perhaps it is Finn drawing his sword for the first time, a moment of courage captured and preserved in the delicate reflection of the water. Perhaps it is a brief, unspoken glance shared between characters, a moment so subtle that in the rush of a single episode, it could have been missed entirely. Yet here in the library, these moments are given time to unfold, to shimmer, to breathe. The archivists lean over these pools with the same patient care they give the volumes on the shelves, ensuring that even the smallest truths remain luminous and intact. The canon shelves themselves occasionally bend gently over the waters, forming arches and alcoves where stories that are tightly woven with one another rest in quiet proximity. A tale of Finn and Jake might lean softly toward a story of Marceline's travels, or a brief adventure in the Candy Kingdom may align with a distant memory from the Ice King's lonely wanderings. The archivists trace the faint threads connecting these tales, their fingers leaving subtle trails of light that guide the observer's eye without insisting on attention. The effect is hypnotic, a slow unfolding of connections that encourages gentle reflection and quiet contemplation. We may notice that some of the volumes here contain layers of narrative within a single spine, as if multiple versions of an event coexist peacefully. The archivists approach these with particular care, ensuring that the layers do not interfere but instead harmonize. A heroic act might contain subtle variations. A conversation may have several echoes. A journey may branch into possibilities that never fully materialize. The library does not insist that one version is superior to another. Instead, it allows them to coexist, each contributing to the slow, luminous flow of understanding that radiates through the waters of what actually was. Occasionally, a soft vibration travels through the water as though a story has sensed a reader, a visitor, or even a fleeting thought from afar. The archivists pause, leaning in, and the surface ripples in response, revealing glimpses of the events contained within. Perhaps it is a smile shared between characters, a line of dialogue remembered, or a small, quiet act of courage. These moments rise gently to the surface, luminous and soft, inviting observation without demanding it. There's a profound serenity here, a sense that the canon is not simply a record, but a living, breathing entity capable of gentle interaction and subtle reflection. And so, sleepyheads, as we drift alongside the archivists, watching the currents and reflections ripple softly beneath the glow of the canon shelves, we begin to feel the quiet power of what has been preserved. The waters of what actually was teach patience, reverence, and the slow unfolding of understanding. Each ripple is an echo, each reflection a reminder that even what is officially told carries depth beyond the surface, a resonance that stretches across time, space, and imagination. Beyond these gentle currents, the library continues to extend, hinting at chambers where canon begins to mingle with possibility, where stories that were never told intertwine with those firmly established, and where the gentle rhythm of preservation becomes a lullaby for all who walk among the aisles. The journey along the canon shelves is a meditation in itself, a slow, reflective passage that encourages the mind to wander softly, absorbing the calm, infinite beauty of Ooh as it has been, and as it continues to ripple quietly in the imagination of dreamers everywhere. As we glide further along the gently curving aisles of the canon shelves, the waters of what actually was continue to ripple softly beneath our feet, carrying with them the faint scent of ink, parchment, and something more ineffable, a quiet resonance of memory itself. The currents seem to recognize the presence of a visitor, adjusting their gentle flow, nudging reflections into view as if inviting contemplation. Here the canon is not a rigid ledger of events. It is a living chronicle, responsive to thought and attention, a river of truth that bends and shimmers without ever losing its clarity. The archivists move alongside the shelves, their luminous forms blending seamlessly with the soft glow of the volumes. They are not hurried, and they never demand our focus. Instead, their movements are deliberate and measured, coaxing stories to reveal their essence while leaving room for wonder and reflection. Sometimes an archivist leans over a particularly old volume, tracing a finger along the spine. Instantly, the story responds, lines of light rising from the pages like a faint mist, carrying the echo of a long-forgotten adventure. Perhaps it is the tale of Finn's first encounter with the Ice King, the wonder of discovery captured in delicate strokes, or perhaps a fleeting moment of quiet between Princess Bubblegum and Marceline, a glance or a smile suspended in time. It is fascinating here, sleepyheads, how the library allows canon and experience to intertwine so softly. A single story may contain multitudes, the official events as recorded, and the subtle nuances of character, and even the silent possibilities that existed in the mind of the creators while they were imagining Ooh. Every decision, every choice, every line of dialogue carries layers of resonance. The archivists recognize these layers intuitively, ensuring that each story is not merely preserved, but harmonized with the broader tapestry of the library. They are the quiet guardians of coherence, allowing the infinite multiplicity of Ooh's canon to exist in perfect balance. Between the shelves, the waters pool gently, forming reflective alcoves where the current slows and glimmers with concentrated memory. Leaning over these pools, one might see not just the events themselves, but their echoes. A flicker of a hero's doubt before triumph, a shadow of melancholy after a fleeting joy, the faint trace of an unspoken thought. Each ripple carries emotion as much as narrative, and the archivists treat these pools with extraordinary delicacy. Their fingers of light hover above the surface, tracing invisible paths that encourage the memories to settle, to shine gently, and to resonate with the quiet harmony of the library. The deeper chambers of the canon shelves reveal subtle patterns of connectivity, stories that on the surface appear unrelated, often share faint resonances, motifs, feelings, or choices that mirror one another across time and space. The archivists glide between these points, tracing the threads with light, weaving gentle arcs that illuminate the interconnections without disturbing the stillness of the waters. It is here that one begins to perceive the library's philosophy. Canon is not a boundary. It is a current. It does not dictate but flows. It is a living record, shaped by attention, memory, and the gentle rhythms of imagination. We may notice volumes that seem to pulse with multiple layers of truth, holding within them not only what occurred, but also the potential ways events might have unfolded. A choice made by Finn might appear in one layer, while a path never taken shimmers faintly in another. The archivists hover over these books, their hands leaving trails of soft illumination as they ensure the layers coexist harmoniously. It is a meditation on possibility, a gentle acknowledgement that even within canon there exists a spectrum of potential, a reminder that every act, every thought, and every word carries the faint ripple of what might have been. The waters themselves seem to respond to these subtleties. When a particularly significant event is reflected, the ripples spread further, interacting with nearby currents to create patterns of quiet resonance. A dramatic moment in one episode might gently influence the perception of a scene elsewhere. A subtle emotion in one character might echo softly in another. The archivists observe these interactions carefully, encouraging a natural harmony rather than imposing order. The effect is hypnotic, a slow, meditative dance of truth and reflection that soothes the mind and invites contemplation. At times, the library allows small glimpses beyond the canonical record, a forgotten sketch, a removed line of dialogue, a storyboard that was never animated. All these appear along the edges of the canon shelves, glowing faintly as if acknowledging their presence. The archivists treat them as gently as any fully realized story, their fingers of light brushing over the edges to preserve their subtle resonance. These fragments remind us that canon is not an endpoint, but a continuum, an ever-expanding river into which all forms of imagination can flow. Occasionally, we may find spaces where the canon shelves bend and merge, forming alcoves that cradle multiple stories together. Here, a single pool of water may reflect intertwined narratives, a heroic act paired with a quiet moment of introspection, a victory mirrored by a personal loss, a friendship punctuated by unspoken understanding. The archivists guide the stories in these alcoves with care, smoothing the currents so that every reflection is legible, every resonance intact. In this space, one begins to sense the library's ultimate lesson, that every tale, whether loud or quiet, monumental or intimate, is part of a larger, coherent, and endlessly flowing whole. And so, sleepyheads, as we continue to drift softly along the canon shelves, watching the gentle interplay of stories and waters, we are invited to reflect, to feel, and to let our minds absorb the calm, expansive rhythm of Oo's narrative truth. The archivists continue their slow, luminous movements, guiding the stories with patience and care, and the waters of what actually was ripple softly beneath, a living meditation on the beauty and depth of what truly happened. Beyond this serene stretch, the library beckons us further toward places where canon begins to blend with possibility, where stories imagined, never realized, or whispered in dreams merge with the recorded history, and where the gentle current of Oo's narrative flows into even more infinite, quiet mystery. As we continue to drift along the canon shelves, the waters of what actually was expand gently, forming broad, luminous channels that trace the pathways of Oo's history. The currents move with a deliberate grace, reflecting the shelves above in soft, undulating patterns that seem to pulse in time with the heartbeat of the library itself. Each ripple is an echo, a memory preserved not merely in ink and paper, but in the subtle resonance of what actually occurred, the choices made, and the emotions felt within the world of Ooh. There is a quiet majesty here, but it is not overwhelming. It is the serenity of truth unfolding slowly, deliberately, and with infinite care. The archivists move alongside these waters as always, their forms glowing faintly with the color of their attention. Some drift just above the surface, fingertips barely skimming the currents, coaxing ripples to reveal their hidden reflections. Others hover beside the shelves, leaning into volumes with patient diligence, their luminous forms tracing gentle arcs across spines, drawing connections that might have gone unnoticed even by the keenest observers. Their movements are a soft choreography, a meditation of light and attention that brings harmony to the canonical truths flowing all around them. Along the edges of the pools, subtle reflections begin to take shape. Moments long past rise quietly to the surface, a heroic leap from Finn that seems impossibly brave in its simplicity. Jake stretching across the sky in a perfect arc. Princess Bubblegum's careful, deliberate hands at work in her lab. Marceline plucking a single note on her bass, the vibration lingering like a soft echo through the air. Each reflection is delicate, inviting observation without demanding it, encouraging us to feel the depth of Oo's world rather than merely recounting its events. Here, canon becomes experiential, something to be absorbed gently like the slow unfolding of a dream. The waters of what actually was do more than reflect, they interact. A subtle shift in one story can send a ripple through another, reminding us that even canonical events do not exist in isolation. A choice made by a character in one episode resonates with the emotions of another, and the archivists guide these interactions with gentle precision. A finger dips lightly into the current, and the ripple flows outward, touching volumes both near and distant. There is no hurry, no pressure, only the slow, deliberate rhythm of connection, harmonizing the intricate web of events, choices, and consequences that form the fabric of Ooh. Some pools along the waters are quieter, almost still, reflecting only a faint glow from nearby volumes. These are the moments of subtlety where meaning lies not in grand gestures, but in the spaces between actions, the pause before a word is spoken, the hesitation before a decision, the small glance that carries unspoken understanding. The archivists hover near these reflections, ensuring that their delicate nuances are preserved, that the quiet truths of Ooh are honored alongside its more overt adventures. In these moments, one senses that the library values not just events, but the emotions, intentions, and possibilities woven through them. The shelves themselves sometimes bend and shift gently toward the waters, forming alcoves where canon is concentrated and reflected with greater intensity. In these alcoves, the stories resonate with one another, creating layers of meaning that ripple across time. A heroic act might shimmer alongside a moment of quiet introspection, a lesson learned in one episode echoing softly in the actions of another character. The archivists guide these resonances with patient care, their light tracing invisible paths that maintain balance, ensuring that each narrative thread is visible yet harmonious within the larger tapestry. Occasionally, fragments of what might have been appear along the edges of the waters, scenes cut from episodes, alternate storyboards, early sketches, and removed dialogue. These fragments hover softly, not disrupting the canon, but existing as gentle reminders of potential. The archivists attend to them with the same quiet reverence, allowing them to float alongside fully realized stories. They acknowledge that canon is not a fixed boundary, but a living continuum, one in which every possibility, every imagined variation, contributes to the rhythm of Oo's narrative. The waters themselves are infused with subtle light, shifting with the passage of reflection. Deep currents carry the weight of pivotal events, while smaller ripples trace minor details, moments that might otherwise go unnoticed. Standing at the edge, it becomes clear that the library sees all these events with equal care, preserving not only the large, dramatic arcs, but also the quiet, tender instants that make Oo's world so rich and enduring. Here, the true beauty of canon emerges. It is not only a record of what was, but a living framework that interacts with imagination, memory, and possibility. The archivists sometimes pause mid-motion, hovering silently above a pool where multiple reflections overlap. They observe the interplay of these stories, tracing subtle lines of connection with fingers of light, harmonizing the currents without altering their essence. It is a meditation in motion, an act of profound care that honors both the recorded events and the reverberations they create. The waters respond, glowing softly with each gentle touch, rippling outward in concentric circles that remind us of the interconnectedness of all things in Oo, from the grandest battles to the smallest, most intimate gestures. And so, sleepyheads, as we drift along the canon shelves and peer into the gentle flow of the waters of what actually was, we come to understand the library's quiet wisdom. The truth is never rigid, that each story, each moment, each choice carries resonance, and that the care with which these stories are preserved determines the harmony of the library itself. Every ripple, every reflection, every subtle echo contributes to the living, breathing tapestry of Oo. The archivists continue their slow, deliberate motion, guiding stories with patience and empathy, and the waters shimmer softly in response. The canon is not static. It flows, it interacts, and it invites contemplation. And as we drift deeper, moving toward chambers where canon begins to intertwine with possibility, we sense that the journey through the library beyond Oo has only just begun, that infinite mysteries lie ahead, waiting to be revealed with gentle care, quiet reflection, and the serene pulse of imagination itself. As we leave behind the serene currents of the canon shelves and the gentle shimmer of the waters of what actually was, our journey carries us into a softer, more ethereal part of the library. This is where imagination runs freely, unbound by the structure of official stories. Here lie the isles of dreams, fan fiction, and futures that might be, a space where the line between what was, what is, and what could be begins to dissolve. The air here feels lighter, tinged with the faint scent of paper, ink, and the strange electric pulse of possibility. The aisles stretch endlessly, shelves bending and twisting as though guided by the whims of the stories themselves. Volumes of every imaginable size and shape line the paths. Some are delicate and small, barely larger than a hand, carrying the whispered dreams of a single mind. Others tower overhead, their spines glowing faintly, cradling vast tomes of collective imagination, worlds that might exist if only for a moment in a dreamer's mind. The archivists follow us here as well, their luminous forms weaving gracefully between the shelves, guiding, harmonizing, and occasionally pausing to nurture a particularly fragile or nascent narrative. This section of the library hums softly with quiet energy. Unlike the canon shelves, which pulse with the rhythm of certainty, these aisles shimmer with the uncertainty of possibility. Every story here carries a weight not of fact, but of imagination. Perhaps it is a fan fiction, imagining a new adventure in the Candy Kingdom, a quiet exploration of Marceline's thoughts at night, or a tale that places Finn in a world slightly askew, where choices differ and outcomes shift like sunlight across a lake. Each story is alive in its own right, and yet it floats gently in the shared continuum of the library, contributing to its infinite harmony. The archivists treat these volumes with extraordinary care. They do not enforce order or dictate value. Instead, they recognize the delicate potential of every story and nurture it as it moves through the aisles. Some hover over newly arrived volumes, waiting for the first flicker of completion, the soft pulse that signals the story is ready to exist fully within the library. Others trace the subtle threads connecting dreams to canon, fan fictions to possibilities, weaving invisible lines of light that allow narratives to resonate with one another without merging or losing their individuality. Here, the influence of human imagination is palpable. The soft echo of a child dreaming of ooh at bedtime, the quiet curiosity of an artist sketching a new scenario, the whispered what if of a storyteller in a distant corner of the world. All of these are captured in the aisles. They coalesce into volumes that glow faintly with the energy of creation. Unlike canon, these stories are malleable. They respond to the attention they receive. A gentle touch from an archivist can coax a half-formed idea into clarity, while a quiet observer may notice subtle shifts as their own attention guides the narrative, illuminating possibilities that were previously hidden in the soft folds of imagination. The aisles themselves are fluid. Shelves bend toward ideas that are particularly resonant, creating alcoves of concentrated imagination. A series of dreams about the Ice King's forgotten past may curve inward, forming a small chamber where the soft hum of potential is almost audible. Across the aisle, fan fictions imagining adventures of BMO or Peppermint Butler align in a lattice of light, each story glowing faintly as if breathing alongside its neighbors. The archivists move between these chambers with a rhythm that mirrors the ebb and flow of creativity itself, their light tracing gentle arcs that encourage resonance and harmony. We notice that many stories here carry echoes of Ooh's known history, softly intertwined with threads that never existed in canon. Finn may face challenges that were never written, or Jake might discover abilities hinted at but unexplored. Princess Bubblegum might experiment with inventions that appear only in someone's dream, and Marceline may traverse landscapes born entirely of imagination. Even the smallest of stories, a fleeting fanfic written quietly at midnight, contributes to the aisle's gentle luminescence, a reminder that every act of creation adds to the living continuum of you. The aisles also house futures that might be. These are stories of possibility so delicate that they shimmer faintly, almost like mirages suspended in the library's air. Some explore what would happen if a decision had gone differently in a known episode, a subtle ripple of consequence that expands quietly across the narrative. Others imagine entirely new worlds, realms of ooh that exist only in the minds of dreamers, yet are preserved here with loving care. The archivists hover near these volumes with particular attentiveness, ensuring that the currents of potential do not collide destructively, but instead harmonize with the surrounding stories, creating a gentle, luminous lattice of possibility. In some alcoves, the boundaries between dreams and fan fiction blur completely. Here the archivists pause, their light mingling with the glow of the stories as though coaxing them into coherence. A dream of Finn exploring a moonlit forest may intertwine with a fan fiction, imagining a quiet day in the Candy Kingdom. The stories do not overwrite one another. They resonate together, creating a layered, soft echo that allows both to exist fully, each enriching the other. The aisles encourage this interplay, allowing the mind to drift freely and absorb the multiplicity of possibilities without pressure or expectation. And so, sleepyheads, as we float gently down these aisles, we begin to understand the profound beauty of the library beyond ooh. Canon is not the only truth, and yet every dream, every fanfic, every imagined future has a place here. The stories are alive, breathing softly, responding to attention, to curiosity, to the gentle hum of imagination itself. The archivists continue their careful, deliberate guidance, ensuring that every narrative, no matter how fleeting or fragile, finds resonance, clarity, and harmony within the infinite expanse of the library. Here in the soft glow of these aisles, we feel quiet invitation to linger, to contemplate, and to drift. Dreams ripple softly, futures shimmer faintly, and fan fictions glow like fireflies in a gentle dusk. The library is not only preserving OO as it is known, but cradling all the ways it could be, allowing us to sense the infinite potential that rests within imagination, waiting to be gently discovered, cherished, and carried forward. And as we continue to float softly along these luminous aisles, we begin to glimpse the deeper purpose of this section of the library, to honor possibility, to celebrate creativity, and to allow every mind that has ever dreamed of OO to see their vision preserved, nurtured, and illuminated. The journey through dreams, fan fiction, and futures that might be is only beginning, and the aisles stretch endlessly before us, inviting quiet reflection, gentle curiosity, and the slow, comforting awareness that imagination, like OO itself, is boundless. As we drift further down the aisles of dreams, fan fiction, and futures that might be, the glow of the volumes grows warmer, like sunlight filtered through a soft morning haze. The air feels almost tangible here, thick with the quiet hum of imagination stretching across time and space. Each story seems to pulse softly, aware of its own existence, yet never insistent. Some shimmer with the subtle light of a single dreamer's thought, fragile and fleeting, while others glow steadily, carrying the combined energy of many minds who have imagined a variation OO. The effect is gentle, mesmerizing, a calm illumination that seems to slow the very heartbeat of the library itself. We notice that the aisles here are not strictly linear. Shelves twist and curve, forming soft alcoves and winding corridors where stories cluster naturally according to theme, emotion, or resonance. A volume imagining a quiet day in the Candy Kingdom may arc gently toward one exploring Marceline's moonlit wanderings, connected by a faint bridge of light that vibrates softly with subtle recognition. The archivists move among these curves with graceful deliberation, their forms reflecting faintly in the glow of the stories. Their purpose here is both protective and facilitative, ensuring that even the most fragile of ideas can coexist with larger, more elaborate narratives, and that the intricate web of potential remains harmonious rather than chaotic. Some of the volumes are so ephemeral that they seem almost translucent, as if made of smoke or liquid light. These are the rawest dreams, the earliest stirrings of imagination that have not yet taken full form. When an archivist passes by, these stories bloom briefly, their pages filling with color, line, and motion, then settling gently back into their delicate state. It is a quiet, magical process, a reminder that creation is not instantaneous, but a gentle unfolding, nurtured by attention, care, and patience. Even the faintest thought has a home here, cradled alongside fully realized adventures, each contributing to the library's vast, living tapestry. The aisles also hum with subtle interactions between stories. A fan fiction, imagining a daring new adventure, may influence a dream of the same characters in a slightly different scenario, their ideas intertwining in a soft, almost imperceptible dance. The archivists trace these interactions, ensuring that the connections enhance rather than overwhelm, allowing stories to resonate with one another while preserving their individuality. These quiet harmonies create a sense of continuity that is comforting, a reminder that even in the realm of possibility there is cohesion, and every imagined future or whispered dream matters. In some corners, the library seems to allow glimpses of entirely new worlds. Here, the boundaries of ooh expand, stretching into landscapes that exist only in thought. Forests of crystalline trees, oceans that shimmer with colors unseen, mountains that drift slowly across the horizon. Characters familiar to us may traverse these realms, encountering events and experiences that were never canon, never scripted, yet carry the unmistakable essence of ooh. The archivists watch these narratives unfold with quiet fascination, guiding them gently so that they harmonize with the overall rhythm of the library without forcing them into a rigid framework. There are volumes that record imagined consequences of tiny choices, the delicate butterfly effects that ripple outward in subtle ways. Perhaps a small decision by Finn changes the course of an adventure entirely, or a moment of hesitation by Princess Bubblegum leads to unforeseen discoveries. The stories here are not constrained by logic or necessity. They are free to explore, to question, and to expand the possibilities of the world. The archivist's role is to nurture these variations, ensuring that even the most fleeting or experimental ideas are treated with care and given space to exist fully within the aisles. And so, sleepyheads, as we continue to drift through this gentle expanse, we begin to feel the infinite scope of imagination reflected in the library. Dreams, fan fiction, and futures that might be coexist here in quiet harmony, each story illuminated softly, each possibility acknowledged. The aisles do not rush us. They allow us to move at our own pace, to linger on details, to marvel at the subtle connections, and to feel the gentle pulse of creativity flowing through every volume. The archivists glide beside us, their light tracing soft, winding arcs between the stories, ensuring that each narrative remains alive, coherent, and harmonized with its neighbors. Their presence is calming, a reminder that every act of imagination, no matter how small, is valued and preserved in this infinite, gentle space. The library does not judge or rank. It simply cradles every story, every idea, every dream, allowing it to exist within the expansive continuum of ooh. And as we float further along these luminous aisles, sleepyheads, we begin to sense the quiet promise of what lies ahead. Beyond these shelves, deeper chambers await, spaces where the boundary between dreams and reality, imagination and memory, begins to blur entirely. Here the library opens itself to infinite possibility, inviting us to continue drifting, reflecting, and gently exploring the boundless worlds that exist, not only in the stories of ooh, but in the hearts and minds of those who dream of it. As we drift deeper into the aisles of dreams, fan fiction, and futures that might be, the atmosphere seems to grow even softer, almost like the library itself is exhaling a slow, quiet sigh. The volumes here pulse with a subtle energy, each one alive with imagination, curiosity, and possibility. Some hum faintly, responding to our presence, while others remain still, waiting patiently for attention, for recognition, for the soft caress of thought that allows them to blossom fully. It is a gentle, magical rhythm, one that encourages calm observation and quiet reflection, allowing the mind to settle as we move along. The shelves twist and sway in ways that are almost impossible to map. Sometimes they form tunnels, soft archways through which clusters of related dreams float like drifting lanterns. In other places, the shelves fan outward, creating open spaces where multiple volumes can interact freely, their energies mingling to form subtle patterns of light and color. The archivists glide alongside us, their movements fluid and deliberate, tracing faint connections between stories, ensuring that each narrative harmonizes with its neighbors without losing its individuality. It is a slow dance of light and imagination, and watching it feels like breathing in a quiet, invisible melody. Here, the dreams often take form in ways that defy expectation. One might glimpse a soft sketch of Finn exploring a forest bathed in moonlight, while just across the aisle, another volume imagines Jake discovering a hidden dimension within his own stretching abilities. The fan fictions are equally inventive, ranging from tender explorations of relationships to bold reimaginings of entire adventures, each one contributing a delicate shimmer to the aisle's overall glow. The archivists allow these stories to intertwine in ways that are subtle and harmonious, nudging threads of possibility into gentle alignment so that every tale feels part of the living fabric of the library. The futures that might be are particularly captivating. These are stories of potential, of choice, of roads not taken, rendered as softly glowing volumes that hover almost like mist above the shelves. Some flicker like fireflies, ephemeral and delicate, while others radiate steady light, as though crystallized from the collective imagination of countless dreamers. These volumes show not only what could happen if a decision were made differently, but also what might emerge from entirely new ideas, fresh adventures, and imagined worlds. The archivists hover near them with a patient attentiveness, ensuring that the currents of possibility flow without turbulence, allowing each potential story to bloom fully. The aisles themselves seem to encourage quiet contemplation. There are alcoves where one can linger and watch volumes shift slightly, their pages rearranging themselves in response to a gentle gaze. A fan fiction imagining a tender reconciliation between characters might hover near a dream where the same characters embark on an uncharted adventure, creating a subtle dialogue across the aisles. Every story resonates softly with its neighbors, producing a luminous harmony that feels almost musical in its quiet rhythm. The archivists facilitate this harmony with subtle movements, tracing paths of light that connect the stories without forcing them to conform. Some of the most delicate stories are nearly translucent, visible only in the faintest glimmers of light. These are the stories born from fleeting thoughts, quiet moments of inspiration, or half-remembered dreams. When an archivist passes by, these fragile narratives pulse and shimmer as if awakened, their contents momentarily revealed in full color before settling back into their gentle, quiet state. The effect is mesmerizing, a reminder that even the most ephemeral act of imagination carries weight and deserves recognition, that every story, no matter how small, contributes to the richness of Oo's ever-expanding tapestry. Occasionally, we catch glimpses of interactions that are almost imperceptible. A fanfic might influence a dream, a fleeting thought may ripple into a new story, or a subtle emotional tone might echo across multiple volumes. The archivists observe these interactions with calm attentiveness, allowing the stories to affect one another naturally, while maintaining the delicate equilibrium of the aisles. The result is a gentle, living web of narrative resonance, where each idea, each moment of creativity, enhances the others without overpowering them. There are also alcoves where the boundaries between fan fiction, dream, and potential future blur completely. Here, an imagined adventure may drift seamlessly into a possible alternate canon, or a dream about a forgotten character may align with a tender, fan-created interaction. The archivists move softly among these alcoves, their light tracing delicate arcs that maintain clarity and coherence while celebrating the fluidity of possibility. It is in these spaces that the library's true magic is most apparent. Imagination and memory, reality and potential, all coexisting in quiet, gentle balance. And so, sleepyheads, as we float along these aisles, surrounded by the soft glow of dreams, fan fiction, and futures that might be, we are reminded of the boundless nature of itself. Every story, every thought, every imagined possibility is given space to exist, to shimmer, and to resonate with its neighbors. The archivists continue their careful, patient guidance, ensuring that each narrative, no matter how fleeting or fragile, finds its place within the infinite expanse of the library. In this gentle, luminous realm, we begin to understand that the library is not only a repository of stories, but also a sanctuary for creativity. It honors imagination as much as it preserves memory, offering quiet reassurance that every dream, every what if, every tender act of storytelling is meaningful. And as we drift further, deeper into this soft, glowing expanse, we sense that the Isles of Dreams fan fiction and potential futures are only a prelude to even more wondrous chambers, where the library's infinite embrace stretches to welcome every thought, every vision, and every heartbeat of imagination that ever reaches toward O. As we drift deeper into the Isles of Dreams, fan fiction, and futures that might be, the air grows even softer, almost tangible, with the quiet hum of imagination. The shelves here curve and sway, as if breathing with the rhythm of the stories themselves. Light pours gently from the volumes, illuminating pathways lined with gentle reflections that ripple like a slow, still river. Each story exists both independently and as part of the vast, interwoven continuum of possibility, each one carrying a pulse of potential that seems to respond to the presence of an observer. The archivists move silently among them, their luminous forms bending and twisting through the aisles with careful deliberation, ensuring that every narrative, no matter how ephemeral, finds its place, its resonance, and its gentle home. Some volumes are so delicate that they almost appear translucent, like fragile wisps of thought caught in the library's glow. These are the earliest stirrings of imagination, the half-formed dreams and quiet what-ifs that have not yet solidified into coherent stories. When an archivist passes by, these fragile narratives bloom softly, expanding into color and light before settling back into their tender, quiet state. Watching them is like witnessing the heartbeat of creativity itself, slow and steady, luminous yet fragile, capable of influencing the currents around it in the gentlest ways. In certain alcoves, stories seem to gather naturally, drawn together by theme, emotion, or subtle resonance. A fan fiction, imagining a tender reconciliation between the two characters, might drift near a dream of the same characters exploring uncharted territory. A potential future, imagining Finn making a choice never taken in canon, may hover close to a whimsical dream of Jake discovering a hidden ability. These stories do not collide or overwrite one another. Instead, they shimmer together, producing layers of subtle light and color that enhance their mutual resonance. The archivists trace invisible arcs between these stories, allowing them to harmonize without forcing conformity, maintaining a delicate balance that preserves the individuality of each narrative while acknowledging its connection to the whole. The futures that might be are perhaps the most delicate of all. They shimmer softly, hovering like mist above the shelves, faintly glowing with the potential of events that may never occur but could exist in the imagination of someone willing to dream. Some flicker like fireflies, delicate and ephemeral, while others radiate steady light, as though crystallized from the collective consciousness of many dreamers. The archivists hover near these volumes with patient attentiveness, gently nudging the currents of possibility so that each story can expand naturally, shimmering with infinite potential without colliding or creating chaos in the aisles. In other corners, the aisles allow glimpses of entirely new landscapes, realms that exist only in imagination. forests of crystalline trees that hum softly with life, oceans that glimmer with colors unknown, mountains that drift slowly across the horizon. Familiar characters traverse these realms, encountering adventures never realized in canon, yet imbued with the essence of ooh. Even the smallest, most intimate fan fiction contributes to this glow, a quiet pulse that threads through the aisles, reminding us that every act of imagination, no matter how brief or unpolished, is preserved here, valued and harmonized with the living continuum of the library. Some of the most subtle stories are nearly imperceptible, visible only as faint sparks along the edges of shelves. These are fleeting dreams, whispered thoughts, and half-remembered imaginings that might otherwise vanish unnoticed. Yet in the library beyond O, nothing is discarded. An archivist's gentle motion or quiet observer's attention can coax these near-invisible stories into momentary luminescence, revealing their hidden beauty and allowing them to contribute to the slow, gentle pulse of creativity that infuses the aisles. Even the smallest spark of imagination has significance here, a reminder that all thoughts, all dreams, all what-ifs carry resonance and are worthy of quiet attention. The aisles themselves seem to respond to the emotional tone of the stories within them. Moments of joy create a soft, golden glow, gentle laughter echoing faintly through the corridors of light. Moments of melancholy shimmer in cool blues and silvers, encouraging reflection and empathy. A particularly tender or heartfelt tale may cause a soft ripple through nearby volumes, creating delicate, resonant patterns that encourage gentle observation without ever demanding it. The archivists move gracefully among these currents, their light tracing arcs of connection, guiding the ebb and flow of resonance while allowing the stories themselves to breathe, to shimmer, and to exist fully in their unique brilliance. There are alcoves where the boundaries between dreams, fan fiction, and potential futures blur entirely. Here, an imagined adventure may merge seamlessly with a variant of canon. A dream may interweave with a potential choice not taken, and the lines between what exists and what might exist fade softly. The archivists move among these spaces with a quiet reverence, ensuring that the interplay between stories remains harmonious, that every narrative is preserved in its delicate complexity, and that the soft pulse of imagination continues to resonate throughout the aisles. And so, sleepyheads, as we drift slowly along these luminous aisles, surrounded by the soft glow of dreams, fan fiction, and futures that might be, we begin to feel the infinite scope of Oo's imagination reflected in the library. Every story, every thought, every tender act of creativity finds its place here, illuminated and harmonized. The archivists continue their careful, patient guidance, ensuring that even the most ephemeral narratives resonate gently within the infinite expanse of possibility. In this tranquil space, we sense the library's quiet promise that every dream matters, every what-if is worthy of attention, and every imagined future has a home. The aisles stretch endlessly, inviting us to drift, to observe, and to gently explore the boundless potential of Ooh, a universe that lives not only in canon, but in the hearts, minds, and imaginations of those who dare to dream. The journey through these aisles is a lullaby of light and possibility, a slow, comforting meditation on creativity, and a serene reminder that imagination, like Ooh itself, is infinite and everlasting. As we leave behind the gentle glow of dreams, fan fiction, and futures that might be, our journey carries us toward a quieter, more shadowed part of the library beyond Ooh. This is the Forbidden Wing, a section whispered about in the corridors of the library itself. The aisles here are narrower, the shelves taller, and the light softer, filtered through layers of haze that seem to swallow sound and slow time. It is not a place of malice, but of caution. The volumes that reside here contain stories that are difficult, unsettling, or dangerous, tales that the library preserves not to harm, but to ensure that they are neither forgotten nor repeated without care. The Forbidden Wing is marked by its quiet gravity. The air feels cooler here, tinged with the faint scent of aged parchment, and a faint, indefinable energy that seems to hum beneath the surface. Shadows stretch across the aisles, soft and moving, like the library itself is breathing. The archivists move more deliberately in this section, their forms glowing softly, careful to avoid disturbing the delicate balance that allows these stories to exist safely. They are the stewards of restraint, ensuring that the narratives are preserved without letting their darker currents spill into the lighter realms of the library. The volumes here are unlike those in the canon shelves or the Isles of Dreams. Their spines are often darker, edged with a subtle, shifting light that seems to resist full illumination. Some tremble slightly on the shelves, as if aware of the attention they might receive. Others are silent, dense, and heavy with the weight of events that were perhaps never meant to be remembered. These are the stories of Ooze shadows, the echoes of choices that led to pain, despair, or disruption. They are preserved here not to glorify, but to acknowledge that even in a world as whimsical as Ooh, there exists complexity, consequence, and the necessity of reflection. The archivists treat these stories with extraordinary care. When a volume is removed from the shelf, it is cradled as if fragile glass, examined with patience, and then returned with the same precision. They read not only the events, but the energy contained within each narrative, the faint traces of emotion, intention, and consequence. In doing so, they ensure that the stories remain intact, preserving their lessons without letting the darker threads weave harm into the wider library. Here, every ripple carries weight, and even the smallest disturbance must be handled with reverence and care. Some of the stories in the Forbidden Wing are almost impossible to look at directly. They contain visions of choices that unravel entire worlds, moments when the balance of ooh was nearly lost, and possibilities that were cruel or destructive. Yet the library does not discard these tales. Instead, they are allowed to exist, contained and harmonized, serving as reminders of the boundaries between wonder and chaos, creation and destruction. The archivists ensure that their presence is neither oppressive nor frightening, guiding us past the more difficult narratives while inviting reflection on the delicate balance of Ooh's universe. There are volumes that appear sealed, bound with subtle, almost imperceptible locks of light, shimmering faintly with energy that suggests the story within carries weight beyond ordinary comprehension. Some contain endings that are impossible to witness fully without great care, moments where tragedy or despair resonates so strongly that it could unbalance a casual reader. The archivists hover nearby, their light tracing the edges of these bindings, maintaining calm in the space and ensuring that no narrative escapes its intended place. It is a delicate dance of preservation and protection, a slow, intentional rhythm that honors the stories without allowing them to dominate or overwhelm. Other tales in the Forbidden Wing are more subtle, the danger lying not in spectacle, but in suggestion. A narrative may explore a character's fear, a moral choice gone awry, or a quiet, creeping sense of loss. These stories are preserved for their lessons, their quiet power to remind us of the fragility of hope, the importance of care, and the weight of decisions. The archivists move among them as if walking on air, their light brushing across spines to keep the energy balanced, ensuring that the lessons remain clear without becoming oppressive or frightening. The aisles themselves are labyrinthine, narrow corridors that curve back on themselves, forming alcoves where the shadows deepen. Occasionally, a whisper of movement can be sensed, the faint resonance of a story stirring within its own boundaries. The forbidden wing does not hum with the same open energy as the Isles of Dreams. Its resonance is muted, more introspective, almost like a quiet heartbeat beneath the library's vast expanse. It encourages reflection and awareness, reminding us that, even in a world of whimsy and wonder, the darker truths of existence remain, quiet but present, shaping the flow of events and choices in subtle, profound ways. There are moments when the archivists pause, their light lingering over particularly potent volumes. Perhaps it is a story in which Oo's heroes faced a consequence too severe, a dream corrupted by fear or a possibility that would have unraveled relationships, hope, or trust. They study these carefully, letting their light trace the narrative's contours, preserving its integrity while preventing the shadows from spilling outward. Even the most difficult tales are treated with reverence, a reminder that understanding comes not from avoidance, but from the careful acknowledgement of what might go wrong when choices are unexamined. And so, sleepyheads, as we move gently through the forbidden wing, we begin to understand its quiet wisdom. The library does not seek to hide these stories for fear or shame, but for balance and contemplation. It preserves them, not as spectacles of darkness, but as lessons in restraint, empathy, and care. Each volume, each shadowed page, is a reminder that even in a land as fantastical as Ooh, there are consequences, moments of vulnerability, and the need for thoughtful attention to the paths we choose. Here in this softer, shadowed light, the archivists guide us with patience, ensuring that the lessons of the Forbidden Wing resonate without overwhelming. The stories are preserved, harmonized, and acknowledged, their echoes lingering in the air like a slow, gentle warning that even wonder must be tempered with awareness. As we drift carefully down these narrow, luminous aisles, we sense that the library is teaching us not only about Ooh, but about the nature of choice, consequence, and the quiet strength required to navigate both light and shadow in any story, any dream, or any life. The Forbidden Wing is a place of reflection, gentle caution, and subtle insight. Its stories are not meant for casual observation, but for quiet contemplation, a space where we can observe, learn, and carry forward the lessons of caution, empathy, and awareness. And as we continue to move slowly through these aisles, sleepyheads, we feel the weight and beauty of every story preserved here, every shadow harmonized with light, and every lesson held gently within the infinite embrace of the library beyond Ooh. As we continue to drift slowly through the narrow, shadowed aisles of the Forbidden Wing, the soft glow of the archivist's light illuminates the delicate patterns etched into the spines of the volumes. Each book seems almost sentient, vibrating faintly with the energy of the story it contains. Some hum low and steady, a subtle reminder of the events within, while others quiver gently, as though aware of being observed. The air feels heavier here, yet it is not oppressive. It carries a sense of quiet reverence, an invitation to approach slowly, to listen, and to reflect on the narratives that exist beyond the comfort of familiar tales. Many of these stories dwell on choices that diverged from the paths we know in canon. Finn might have acted differently, and a single decision could have led to isolation or loss. Princess Bubblegum might have chosen power over compassion in one fleeting possibility, altering relationships and alliances. These tales are not presented to frighten or to condemn, but to illuminate the weight of choice and the fragile balance that maintains harmony in ooh. The archivist's light traces the edges of these volumes, ensuring that the subtle currents of consequence flow quietly without spreading undue disturbance into the aisles beyond. Some sections of the Forbidden Wing hold collections that are particularly challenging to behold. A volume may depict a quiet unraveling, a moment of despair or betrayal, so subtle that its resonance is almost imperceptible unless observed with patience. Other volumes contain dramatic events that never reached canon, catastrophes that ripple through alternate possibilities, and endings too heavy for the open library. Yet even in their darkness, these stories are treated with extraordinary care, preserved not as warnings or curiosities, but as a meditation on the complexity of morality, choice, and consequence within Oo's vast and wondrous world. The aisles themselves seem alive, responding subtly to the energy of the stories contained within. Shadows twist and curve with a soft, fluid motion, forming alcoves that isolate particularly potent narratives, allowing them to exist without influencing surrounding volumes. It is a natural containment, a way for the library to honor these stories while maintaining the delicate balance of resonance that flows throughout the larger space. The archivists move carefully among these alcoves, their hands of light gliding over spines, ensuring that each story remains harmonized, its lessons intact, and its weight neither diminished nor amplified beyond its proper measure. Occasionally, we notice volumes that seem almost forbidden to even the archivists themselves. Their energy is intense, a subtle vibration that hums through the aisles in quiet insistence. These books are handled with exceptional reverence, often only touched indirectly through arcs of soft light. The stories they contain may explore the deepest shadows of ooh, moments of regret, despair, or choices that would have unraveled entire communities. Yet despite their intensity, these volumes exist as a vital part of the library's philosophy, the acknowledgement that understanding darkness is as necessary as celebrating light, that caution and awareness are essential companions to curiosity and wonder. The archivists occasionally pause in front of particularly significant volumes, their luminescent forms tracing patterns that seem to slow time itself. These gestures are subtle, almost imperceptible, but they carry immense care, ensuring that even the most precarious narratives remain balanced. We may notice faint ripples in the air as they pass, like the soft movement of water disturbed by a gentle breeze, signaling that these stories are alive and must be respected. Every step, every movement is deliberate, a reminder that the Forbidden Wing is not a place for hasty exploration, but for contemplative observation, where lessons are absorbed slowly and quietly, like the first hints of dawn touching the horizon. There are moments when the air thickens with the echo of the stories themselves. Whispers of choices made and unmade drift along the aisles, not in words, but in faint currents of emotion and possibility. A missed opportunity, a quiet betrayal, or a moment of unchecked ambition resonates softly in the ambient light, an invisible tapestry of consequences that stretches across the aisles and shelves. The archivist's presence tempers these echoes, guiding them into gentle harmonies, preserving the stories while preventing their darker notes from overwhelming the space or those who wander too close without care. And so, sleepyheads, as we continue our careful drift through the Forbidden Wing, we begin to sense its quiet purpose. It is not a place of fear, nor one of punishment, but a sanctuary for difficult truths, subtle lessons, and the contemplation of choice and consequence. Every volume, every shadowed page, is preserved with reverence and intention, teaching that even in a world of adventure and whimsy, there exist stories that must be approached with care, mindfulness, and reflection. Here in the soft, filtered light of the Forbidden Wing, the library invites us to acknowledge the weight of possibility, the subtle consequences of action, and the quiet truths that dwell in shadow. The archivists move with patience, their gentle guidance ensuring that these stories are preserved, understood, and harmonized, while allowing us to observe and reflect without fear. The journey through this wing is a meditation, a slow and deliberate passage that reminds us that every story, even those that should not be told casually, holds meaning, and that understanding and respect for shadow are as vital as the light we cherish. As we continue to float softly through the winding, shadowed corridors of the Forbidden Wing, the air seems to thicken with quiet contemplation. The light here is gentle, yet hesitant, as though the library itself is aware that some stories are fragile, resonant, and potentially overwhelming. The volumes seem to lean slightly inward, cradling their secrets carefully, their dark spines etched with subtle patterns that shift and shimmer when observed closely. Each story carries its own pulse, a delicate rhythm of consequence and reflection, and the archivists move among them with a precision born of deep understanding, their luminous forms tracing arcs of protection and guidance without disturbing the fragile balance. Here the stories are not bound by whimsy or comfort. They explore the complexities of choice, the weight of unintended consequences, and the quiet fractures that can emerge even in worlds as vibrant and fantastical as Ooh. A narrative may trace a single misstep by Finn, the ripple of one decision causing quiet shifts that spread through relationships and adventures alike. Another may follow Princess Bubblegum into moral ambiguity, illustrating the subtle consequences of choices made in isolation or haste. These stories are preserved not to alarm, but to illuminate the fragile intricacies of decision, consequence, and reflection, reminding us that even in a world of magic and heroism, actions carry weight. The archivist's presence here is crucial. They move deliberately, their motions slow and rhythmic, ensuring that each story's energy is contained and harmonized with the surrounding narratives. When a particularly potent volume is approached, an archivist may extend a hand of light toward it, coaxing the story to stabilize, allowing its lessons to resonate without allowing its shadow to spread beyond its intended boundary. Their care is meticulous, almost ritualistic, a soft meditation that acknowledges the gravity of the stories while ensuring the continued tranquility of the wing. Some of the tales are so powerful that they seem almost alive, trembling faintly on the shelves as if aware of being observed. Their energy is subtle but insistent, a soft vibration that seems to echo along the corridors. These are stories that explore despair, fear, or regret so profound that they could overwhelm the casual reader. The library, however, does not attempt to erase or silence them. Instead, it preserves their integrity, creating quiet alcoves where their resonance can exist without disrupting the balance of the surrounding aisles. The archivists move with precise care, their light brushing the spines and pages, guiding the subtle energies into patterns of containment and gentle reflection. Occasionally, we encounter volumes that are sealed in ways that suggest caution, bound with intricate locks of light that shimmer faintly in response to presence. These are stories whose consequences are deep, whose lessons may be difficult to fully absorb, whose endings are not meant for casual observation. An archivist will hover near these volumes, tracing delicate arcs of light along the bindings to stabilize the narrative, ensuring that it can be observed safely without disturbing the delicate balance of the surrounding space. There is no rush here, no expectation to grasp everything at once. The Forbidden Wing encourages patience, mindfulness, and gentle contemplation. The isles themselves seem almost conscious, responding to the energy of the stories they house. Shadows shift and curve, creating pockets of isolation for particularly potent narratives, while subtle ripples of light trace the connections between related tales. A story of regret in one corner may softly resonate with a tale of missed opportunity elsewhere, creating a quiet echo that encourages reflection without imposing fear or discomfort. The archivist's gentle movements ensure that these connections remain harmonious, guiding the flow of energy in ways that maintain balance and clarity, while allowing the weight of each story to be felt fully. In certain alcoves, the narratives interweave in complex layers, forming intricate patterns of cause and effect. One story may follow Finn through a difficult moral choice, while a parallel tale explores the consequences of that choice in an alternate possibility. Another may track the quiet unraveling of relationships, the subtle impact of unspoken words or unintended actions. The archivists trace these connections with luminous arcs of light, allowing the narratives to resonate with one another while preserving their distinct integrity. The effect is mesmerizing, a slow, quiet symphony of consequence and reflection, one that encourages the mind to drift gently along with the rhythm of thought and story. And so, sleepyheads, as we move carefully through the forbidden wing, we begin to sense its profound purpose. It is not a place of fear nor one of judgment. It is a space of awareness, of contemplation, and of gentle caution. Each volume, each shadowed page, carries a lesson about choice, consequence, and the delicate balance that sustains Oo's world. The archivists ensure that these stories are preserved, harmonized, and observed with reverence, allowing us to witness the quiet wisdom they contain without being overwhelmed by their weight. Here in the soft-filtered glow of the Forbidden Wing, we understand that the library does not shy away from the shadows. It preserves them, harmonizes them, and allows them to exist alongside the light. The stories held here are not forbidden to terrify, but to teach, to remind us of the importance of reflection, care, and awareness in every action. As we drift slowly along these narrow, luminous corridors, sleepyheads, we feel the delicate pulse of the library's purpose, to hold both wonder and shadow, joy and consequence, imagination and caution, in quiet, gentle balance. The Forbidden Wing is a meditation, a sanctuary for the difficult truths of Oo's universe, a place where every story, no matter how dark, complex, or challenging, is given space to exist, resonate, and teach. The archivist's presence ensures that the balance is maintained, the lessons are preserved, and the quiet pulse of the library continues to hum softly throughout this hidden, shadowed space. And as we continue to float through these aisles, we sense that even in the heart of darkness there is calm, there is reflection, and there is the infinite care of a library that holds every story, every choice, and every lesson with a gentle reverence. As we drift further into the depths of the Forbidden Wing, sleepyheads, the atmosphere becomes even quieter, as though the library itself is holding its breath. The shadows here are not oppressive. They are thoughtful, contemplative, gently enfolding the stories in their embrace so that they may exist safely. The volumes along these aisles carry an aura of weight, the kind that demands patience and respect. Some vibrate softly, almost like a heartbeat, while others remain still, exuding a profound stillness that seems to absorb the ambient light. Each story here is a careful meditation on consequence, a quiet echo of choices made, or possibilities that, thankfully, remained unrealized. These are tales that explore the tender intersections between courage and failure, hope and despair, love and loss. They trace the paths of Finn's bravery when it falters, of Jake's loyalty tested by impossible circumstances, of Princess Bubblegum's ambition when it drifts too far from compassion. Some volumes reveal entire worlds unmade by a single misstep, histories rewritten in shadow, lives altered by what might have been. The archivists guide these stories with unwavering care, their light flowing like water along the shelves, ensuring that even the heaviest tales resonate gently rather than collapse into chaos. Many of the volumes here are bound in materials that shimmer faintly with an internal light, as though the story itself illuminates its pages from within. Some are sealed with delicate locks of pure energy, their contents nearly impossible to access without careful guidance. These hold narratives too potent, too delicate, or too dangerous to be read casually. An archivist approaches with slow, deliberate movements, tracing arcs of soft luminescence over the bindings, coaxing the story to stabilize while keeping its energy contained. Observing this is like watching a ritual of care, a quiet ceremony that honors the weight of imagination and consequence in equal measure. The Forbidden Wing is also home to the stories that stir more subtly. They are the whispers of what could have been, the quiet ripple of regret, hesitation, or unintended consequences. A simple choice by Finn or a small miscalculation by Princess Bubblegum may resonate through multiple volumes, creating soft waves of possibility that drift gently across the aisles. Here the archivist's role is almost maternal or guardian-like, ensuring that these echoes of shadow do not intrude into the lighter aisles, that the weight of the narratives is balanced, and that the lessons of caution, empathy, and careful thought are preserved. The aisles themselves curve and bend in labyrinthine patterns, creating intimate alcoves where particularly potent stories can rest without affecting neighboring volumes. Shadows pool softly at the bases of the shelves, forming quiet enclaves where the narrative energy hums with a gentle intensity. Faint ripples of light trace the connections between related stories, weaving subtle threads of cause and effect. Without imposing order or judgment, the archivist's presence ensures that these currents remain harmonious, guiding them with patience and care so that every story may exist in its fullest depth without overwhelming the delicate ecosystem of the library. Some volumes seem almost alive, shivering faintly when approached, resonating with the observer's attention. These are narratives of profound consequence, moments when the fabric of Ooh itself might have been altered in ways that are difficult to witness. Yet the library preserves them not to frighten, but to illuminate the importance of awareness, responsibility, and mindfulness. Each story carries lessons embedded in its pages, subtle reminders of the fragility of balance, the delicacy of trust, and the weight of decisions in a world both magical and real. The archivists often pause before the most potent volumes, their soft light tracing careful patterns along the edges of the stories. In these moments, the air seems to hum gently, a slow vibration that encourages reflection without intrusion. The light acts almost as a buffer, stabilizing the energy of the narrative while allowing us to perceive its essence. Here, the library is teaching us not only about Ooh, but about the quiet power of restraint, the importance of contemplation, and the gentle art of understanding the shadows without being consumed by them. There are spaces where the boundaries between stories blur, creating a delicate interplay of shadow and resonance. A tale of failure may echo faintly alongside a story of regret, while an alternate possibility of despair might illuminate the subtle lessons of courage and perseverance. The archivists trace these connections with luminous arcs, maintaining harmony while allowing the subtle conversations between stories to unfold. It is a quiet, intricate dance of light and shadow, a reflection of the infinite care required to preserve balance and ensure that each narrative maintains its integrity. And so, sleepyheads, as we float gently through the final corridors of the Forbidden Wing, we begin to sense its ultimate purpose. It is not a place of fear nor a repository of darkness meant to daunt the imagination. It is a sanctuary for reflection, awareness, and understanding. Every story here, every moment of regret, every possibility unfulfilled, every shadowed choice is preserved with reverence, harmonized carefully by the archivists, and presented as a gentle lesson in the consequences of action, the fragility of hope, and the importance of mindful attention. The Forbidden Wing, in its quiet, shadowed beauty, teaches us that even in worlds of whimsy, heroism, and adventure, there is complexity, subtlety, and weight. Its volumes encourage patience, reflection, and a deep awareness of the ripples our choices create. The archivists continue their gentle guidance, ensuring that the balance between light and shadow, possibility and consequence is maintained. Every narrative is given space, every lesson preserved, and every shadow cradled within the infinite, loving embrace of the library beyond Ooh. As we leave this wing behind, sleepyheads, we carry with us the knowledge that even the most difficult stories have their place. They remind us to move thoughtfully, to reflect deeply, and to respect both the light and shadow within Ooh and within ourselves. The Forbidden Wing, quiet and luminous in its restraint, is not a place of endings, but of understanding, a gentle echo that teaches us that every story, no matter how dark, matters in the tapestry of imagination and the infinite library that cradles it all. As we leave behind the quieter shadows of the Forbidden Wing, our journey now takes us toward a place that is almost impossible to fully comprehend. This is the Infinite Shelf, a corridor of endless possibility where stories do not merely exist. They create themselves, evolve, and intertwine with one another in ways that are as fluid as the dreams from which they spring. The air here feels alive with gentle motion, a soft current that carries the quiet rustle of pages turning on their own, the faint shimmer of light tracing the edges of narratives still forming. The Infinite Shelf is a space that stretches beyond sight, beyond measurement, a realm where time bends and imagination flows freely in every direction. Here the volumes are not static. They shimmer and shift, breathing softly with the energy of creation. Some stories begin as a single glowing word, expanding gradually into paragraphs, chapters, and entire adventures without human hands guiding them. Others swirl with soft currents of light, connecting with neighboring tales to form networks of possibilities, branching endlessly in directions that feel at once familiar and entirely new. The shelf itself seems aware, stretching infinitely into the distance, adjusting subtly to accommodate the expansion of imagination. Walking here is like floating through a gentle river of thought, where every story contributes to the slow, mesmerizing flow of creativity. As we move alongside the Infinite Shelf, we notice that the stories here are both familiar and yet entirely alive with novelty. A tale of Finn and Jake's adventures may begin with a known scene, yet within a few moments, the narrative twists into a realm unseen, characters reacting in ways that feel both true to themselves and inspired by new possibility. A story of Marceline may ripple outward, intersecting with distant narratives in a soft lattice of cause and effect, while Princess Bubblegum's choices gently shape the evolution of countless other tales across the shelf. The sense of infinite connection is soothing, almost hypnotic, a delicate, slow rhythm that encourages the mind to wander while still feeling rooted in the essence of Ooh. The infinite shelf is home to the story that writes itself, a phenomenon that embodies the very heart of the library beyond Ooh. Unlike other volumes, it is not bound by pages or edges, not limited by canon or imagination. It is alive in the purest sense, continuously forming and reforming, responding to thought, emotion, and possibility. Observing it is like gazing into a soft, luminous fog, within which entire narratives bloom and fade, intertwine, and blossom again. The archivists approach this story with the utmost care, their forms glowing softly as they trace gentle arcs of light around it, preserving its fluidity while ensuring that its movement remains harmonious with the surrounding infinite shelf. This story seems to exist simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, a gentle current that carries whispers of countless adventures, some known, some forgotten, some imagined in dreams that never reached reality. Characters drift through its unfolding narrative, acting freely yet always with resonance, their actions rippling across unseen threads to influence distant tales. Here the boundary between author, observer, and story itself dissolves. Every thought, every gentle idea, every quiet reflection seems to find a place within the narrative, contributing to its infinite expansion while remaining in harmony with the larger continuum of the library. We notice that the infinite shelf is not a chaotic space. Even amidst the continual creation and evolution of stories, there is balance, a soft order that emerges naturally. Volumes that begin independently may weave together in luminous networks, forming quiet constellations of related narratives. The archivists trace these connections with arcs of gentle light, ensuring that even as the stories grow and shift, they remain comprehensible, their energies harmonized. It is a living, breathing ecosystem of imagination, where every tale, every word, and every thought contributes to the quiet, gentle symphony of creation. Some stories seem to respond to the observer directly, not in sudden bursts of action, but in soft, subtle ways. A glance at a familiar character may cause their narrative to unfurl slightly differently. A thought of a particular adventure may ripple through multiple volumes, altering their shimmer or the direction of their light. It is a gentle, slow process, a quiet dialogue between imagination and story, observer and observed, each influencing the other in subtle, harmonious ways. The infinite shelf reminds us that creativity is not static. It is responsive, evolving, and profoundly connected. Here, the archivists guide the flow of the stories with extraordinary patience. They do not impose, control, or dictate. Instead, they harmonize, smoothing edges where conflicts arise, allowing threads of narrative to intersect without unraveling, and ensuring that the gentle pulse of creation continues uninterrupted. Their presence is calming, a reminder that even in a space of endless possibility, care and attention are vital. They are guardians of flow, stewards of balance, ensuring that every narrative finds its rhythm without overwhelming the soft current of the infinite shelf. The story that writes itself sometimes drifts close to the observer, its luminescent forms brushing faintly against the edges of perception. We may catch glimpses of new adventures for Finn and Jake, Marceline exploring uncharted realms, or Princess Bubblegum navigating choices never imagined before. Each narrative blooms and fades, then returns in altered form, creating a sense of infinite possibility that is gentle, hypnotic, and comforting. It is a lullaby of light and imagination, a reminder that creation itself can be a soft, flowing meditation, and that the library beyond Ooh exists not to confine stories, but to nurture their endless expansion. And so, sleepyheads, as we drift along the infinite shelf, we begin to feel the slow, mesmerizing rhythm of stories that write themselves. The air hums softly with possibility, and the light pulses gently as narratives bloom, intertwine, and dissolve in perfect harmony. The library here is at its most expansive and most serene, a place where every thought, every dream, every whisper of imagination is cradled, valued, and allowed to contribute to the infinite, luminous tapestry of ooh. The infinite shelf and the story that writes itself teach us something extraordinary, that even in worlds of whimsy and adventure, there is space for reflection, creativity, and endless possibility. Here, the boundaries of imagination are not fixed. They are soft, fluid, and infinitely responsive, allowing us to drift slowly through narrative, to observe, to dream, and to gently witness the living pulse of creation itself. This is the heart of the library beyond Ooh, Sleepyheads, a quiet, luminous sanctuary where stories are eternal, ever-evolving, and endlessly comforting. As we continue to drift gently along the infinite shelf, Sleepyheads, the scale of what surrounds us becomes almost impossible to grasp. The shelves stretch endlessly in every direction, bending and curving as if following some secret logic only the library itself understands. Volumes float freely in midair, drifting slowly between sections, as if carried by invisible currents of thought. Some are small, intimate stories, glowing softly like fireflies, while others are vast epics, their light filling entire alcoves with gentle radiance. Every narrative is alive, breathing softly with the energy of creation, and together they form a luminous tapestry that seems to expand with every passing heartbeat. The story that writes itself continues its quiet, mesmerizing dance. It is not bound by beginning or end, but moves fluidly, exploring infinite possibilities without haste or pressure. A scene may unfold in one moment, depicting Finn discovering a hidden realm, and in the next, the same narrative may ripple outward, offering glimpses of what could have happened if another choice were made. Characters drift in and out of focus, sometimes familiar, sometimes entirely new, each one contributing their essence to the story's gentle evolution. It is a space of infinite potential, where imagination and reality intermingle softly, like light through mist. There is a quiet magic in the way stories here respond to attention. Even the softest thought or fleeting curiosity can influence their flow. A gentle focus on a beloved character may cause a new chapter to emerge, while a quiet reflection on a possibility not yet imagined can ripple across nearby volumes, subtly altering the course of intertwined narratives. The infinite shelf reminds us that creativity is alive, responsive, and deeply connected. Nothing exists in isolation, and every act of imagination, no matter how small, contributes to the ongoing dance of creation. The archivists move silently among the shelves, their presence calming and deliberate. They guide the currents of narrative with light that traces invisible arcs, harmonizing energies, smoothing potential conflicts, and ensuring that the infinite flow of stories remains gentle and coherent. Their work is patient, meticulous, and almost meditative, allowing the library to function as a living organism, where every story has space to grow and every idea can breathe. Watching them is itself a soothing experience, a quiet reminder of the delicate care required to maintain balance in a world of infinite imagination. Some volumes appear to shimmer with possibilities yet unseen, glowing faintly as if aware of the attention they might receive. These are stories on the cusp of existence, narratives that are forming slowly from the edges of imagination, waiting for the right spark to bring them fully into being. The archivists approach these with particular care, their light coaxing the story to stabilize gently, allowing it to unfold without forcing it, preserving the delicate rhythm of creation that is so essential to the infinite shelf. The infinite shelf is not just a repository of what has been imagined, but a sanctuary for what might be. It encourages slow, reflective observation, allowing the mind to wander gently without haste, to drift among the possibilities, and to witness the quiet miracle of stories forming and evolving in real time. Every character, every adventure, every whispered what if contributes to the living, luminous network of narrative that fills the space. Even as the shelf stretches endlessly in every direction, there is a calm coherence to it, a slow rhythm that is soothing to witness, as though the library itself is breathing in time with the observer. And so, sleepyheads, as we continue our gentle journey along the infinite shelf, we begin to sense the profound beauty of stories that write themselves. Each volume, each narrative thread, each flicker of possibility is a testament to the limitless imagination that Ooh inspires. The library beyond Ooh is not merely a collection of tales. It is a living, breathing ecosystem of creativity, patience, and gentle care, where the infinite pulse of narrative flows freely, endlessly, and serenely. Here we are invited to drift, to reflect, and to rest in the comforting knowledge that imagination itself is eternal, always expanding, and always cradled within the soft, glowing embrace of the library. As we drift further along the infinite shelf, sleepyheads, the sense of vastness deepens, yet it is never overwhelming. There is a gentle rhythm to the flow of narratives, a quiet pulse that seems to breathe in time with the library itself. Volumes shimmer with soft light, their energy pulsing like a heartbeat, and the air is filled with the faint hum of stories unfolding, merging and branching in endless permutations. Here, time feels fluid, as though moments stretch and fold upon themselves, allowing each story to exist simultaneously in multiple forms, all harmonized by the subtle, deliberate guidance of the archivist. The story that writes itself is the centerpiece of this infinite expanse, and yet it does not dominate. Instead, it moves in quiet resonance with the surrounding volumes, reflecting the infinite interplay of imagination. A narrative may begin with Finn venturing into an unfamiliar land, but before long, the scene unfolds into a dreamlike variation, where the familiar becomes strange and new, yet always tethered to the essence of the character and the world. Each branch of the story is soft, fluid, and luminous, allowing us to witness not just events, but the gentle unfolding of possibility itself. Characters drift through the narrative with a quiet autonomy. The choice is unfolding organically, influenced subtly by the energy of the infinite shelf. A glance from an observer, a passing thought, or even the quiet attention of an archivist can nudge the currents of the story, encouraging new developments without ever forcing them. This is a place of gentle collaboration between imagination and narrative, where every idea, every reflection, every tender curiosity contributes to the ongoing evolution of story. The infinite nature of the shelf ensures that no possibility is lost and no thought is ever dismissed. Some of the volumes here glow with unusual intensity, indicating stories that are particularly resonant, rich with emotion or possibility. These are narratives that contain entire universes within themselves, branching endlessly in soft, luminous arcs. As we watch, the archivists trace their light carefully, guiding connections to neighboring stories, ensuring that the flow of narrative energy remains balanced. It is a delicate process, akin to tending a garden of light and possibility, allowing each story to bloom fully while maintaining harmony with the infinite ecosystem of the library. In the infinite shelf, there is also a sense of dialogue between stories. A tale of adventure may ripple across the air, inspiring subtle shifts in nearby volumes. Dreams and possibilities intertwine, forming soft constellations of connected narratives. Sometimes we can perceive faint echoes of choices unmade, alternate outcomes, or imagined futures brushing against one another, each one contributing to the gentle, constant evolution of the library. This interplay is not chaotic. It is carefully harmonized by the archivists, whose patient guidance ensures that every narrative resonates without overwhelming, and every possibility finds its place in the luminous continuum. The story that writes itself sometimes seems to respond directly to the presence of an observer. A gentle thought, a fleeting curiosity, or even the soft act of listening can cause a new branch of the story to unfurl, revealing characters or events that were not visible before. Finn may encounter a hidden realm, Marceline may discover a song yet unsung, or Princess Bubblegum may make a choice that echoes across countless potential outcomes. The narrative flows like a river of light and imagination, ever-changing yet coherent, endlessly expanding yet comforting in its infinite, gentle rhythm. As we continue along this corridor of possibility, we notice that the infinite shelf itself seems to pulse in quiet harmony with the stories it holds. Volumes drift slowly along soft currents of light, brushing gently against each other, their edges shimmering with the subtle energy of creation. Every narrative, no matter how small or transient, contributes to this delicate symphony, reinforcing the sense that imagination is alive, eternal, and infinitely patient. The archivists move among the volumes with grace, their luminous forms tracing arcs that stabilize the flow without imposing rigidity, ensuring that each story's rhythm remains gentle, coherent, and harmonious. Here, sleepyheads, there is a profound sense of calm. The infinite shelf is not a place of haste or urgency. It encourages slow observation, gentle reflection, and the quiet joy of witnessing creativity in motion. Each story is a soft beacon, illuminating the infinite potential of ooh and the imagination that surrounds it. The story that writes itself embodies this principle fully, a living, evolving meditation on possibility, choice, and the quiet magic of creation. We are invited not to control it, but to observe, to drift along its currents, and to rest in the gentle, flowing pulse of narrative. Even as the infinite shelf stretches endlessly in every direction, there is a comforting coherence to it. The stories interact, harmonize, and resonate without ever colliding or overwhelming. Characters drift naturally through adventures both familiar and strange. Moments of wonder and introspection intertwine, and the narrative flows with a gentle, hypnotic rhythm. The archivist's patient guidance ensures that every story, every thought, every possibility is preserved, harmonized, and allowed to evolve at its own pace, creating a serene environment that encourages reflection, imagination, and quiet observation. And so, sleepyheads, as we move gently through the infinite shelf, we begin to sense its quiet, profound purpose. It is a place of infinite possibility, a sanctuary for imagination, and a meditation on the ever-evolving nature of stories. The story that writes itself reminds us that creation is alive, responsive, and infinitely patient. Every narrative, every choice, every whispered what if contributes to the gentle, luminous symphony of the library beyond ooh, a space where imagination flows freely, endlessly, and serenely, inviting us to drift, reflect, and rest within its soft, infinite embrace. As we drift ever deeper along the infinite shelf, sleepyheads, we begin to feel the gentle enormity of the space not as overwhelming, but as profoundly comforting. The air hums softly with possibility, each volume shimmering with quiet energy, each story breathing its own rhythm into the currents of imagination. Here, time feels almost irrelevant. Moments stretch, fold, and interlace, allowing entire adventures to unfold in parallel, each one unique, yet harmonized with the subtle pulse of the library. It is a space where reflection and wonder coexist in perfect balance, where every story, no matter how small, contributes to the infinite tapestry of ooh. The story that writes itself moves like a soft river of light, drifting around the infinite shelf in gentle arcs. Entire narratives bloom before our eyes, then slowly fade, replaced by new possibilities that shimmer just as softly. Finn may be seen embarking on a journey he never took in canon, discovering lands that exist only in fleeting whispers of imagination. Jake may shapeshift in ways that defy even the bounds of his usual elasticity, exploring facets of himself only dreams could reveal. Marceline's songs echo across volumes that are not yet written, stirring currents that influence countless narratives. Princess Bubblegum may confront decisions that never came to pass, each choice rippling outward in luminous threads that brush softly against distant stories. Each narrative exists simultaneously in potential and in motion, a gentle testament to the infinite creativity held within the library. The infinite shelf is alive in a way that feels nurturing rather than chaotic. Stories interact with one another, branching and weaving together, forming networks of possibility that glow faintly like constellations in a dark, infinite sky. It is a dance of light and thought, a symphony of imagination, where every story has its place and every possibility is valued. The archivists move like slow, deliberate currents of their own, stabilizing the harmonies where needed, guiding the flow without ever imposing control. Their light caresses the volumes with patience and care, maintaining the gentle rhythm of creation while allowing the narratives to flourish freely, naturally, beautifully. Here the observer becomes part of the process. Even a quiet glance or whispered thought may nudge a narrative along, like a soft wind across rippling water. The infinite shelf does not demand participation, yet it responds to awareness, allowing the gentle observer to witness the subtle evolution of story, character, and possibility. In this way, the library teaches us not only about ooh, but about imagination itself, that it is living, responsive, and infinitely patient. The creation is a gentle, ongoing meditation, and that the act of observing, reflecting, and dreaming is itself part of the story. Some of the most luminous tales here are those that bridge multiple possibilities, volumes whose threads extend across hundreds of narratives, linking characters, moments, and adventures in soft, delicate networks of light. The archivists ensure that these interconnections remain balanced, allowing each story to resonate without dominating the others. We can feel the pulse of countless adventures vibrating gently through the air, each one a soft reminder of the beauty of choice, the serenity of reflection, and the wonder of infinite creativity. The infinite shelf is not overwhelming because it is never hurried. It invites us to drift, to watch, and to let the stories flow around us like a quiet, luminous current. The story that writes itself in its subtle brilliance teaches the most profound lesson of all, that imagination is endless, alive, and deeply interconnected. Every choice, every idea, every whisper of thought contributes to the infinite weave of narrative, creating a space that is simultaneously restful, inspiring, and endlessly comforting. It reminds us that stories are not static. They breathe, grow, and shift, responding to attention and care. The library beyond ooh preserves not only the tales that have been told, but the infinite possibilities that stretch beyond them, always flowing, always expanding, yet always gentle, always serene. As we drift through this vast corridor, sleepyheads, we sense the harmony of creation itself, the soft glow of infinite pages, the quiet pulse of narratives forming and reforming, the gentle, luminous guidance of the archivists, all converge to create a sense of calm that is almost tangible. It is the feeling of floating within the very essence of imagination, cradled by the gentle currents of possibility, aware of the vastness of what could be, and yet soothed by the serene, meticulous care with which every story is held. And so, as we come to the edge of the infinite shelf, we realize that the library beyond Ooh is more than a repository of tales. It is a sanctuary for imagination, a meditation on choice and consequence, a quiet, infinite space where the living pulse of narrative flows endlessly. The stories are alive, the possibilities infinite, and the gentle rhythm of the library reminds us that creation is patient, careful, and comforting. In this space, every dream, every thought, every possibility is cradled and allowed to bloom at its own pace, teaching us that even in the vastness of imagination, there is calm, reflection, and balance. So, sleepyheads, as we float quietly through the soft glow of the infinite shelf and witness the gentle unfolding of the story that writes itself, we carry with us a sense of wonder, serenity, and infinite possibility. The library beyond Ooh is eternal, gentle, and luminous, a space where every story matters, every possibility is honored, and every dream is held with care. And now, as the gentle hum of the library lulls us further into quiet reflection, we can close our eyes, drift softly, and let the currents of imagination carry us into dreams of our own. Good night.